"What's for dinner?" Jackson's words pierced the silence of our tense kitchen, his tone cold and dismissive as always. I froze, the venom in his voice draining the joy from my soul once again. How far we had fallen from those early dreamy days in Chicago when his smile filled me with delight. Now every word he uttered struck me with dread. I said nothing, responding only with silence. My hatred for the stranger Jackson had become sitting like a stone in my heart. He clicked his tongue, shaking his head as he strode out, granting me a few more minutes of hollow peace. My thoughts drifted to 5 years ago, when Jackson would surprise me with flowers and gifts, when our newborn son Eli would gaze at us like we held the secrets of the universe. I remembered the perfumed scent of happiness that seemed to follow us wherever we went. How blinded I was by illusions. The shrill ring of my phone cut through the silence. My mother-in-law, Eleanor, no doubt ready to yet again make veiled accusations about my failings as a wife and mother. "Avalon, I haven't seen my precious Eli in over a week," Eleanor complained. "I miss my darling boy." Her words were sweet, but her meaning clear. She wanted to see Eli without me sullying their visit. My role was to produce her prized grandchild, then vanish into the background. "We can arrange something soon," I said evenly, refusing to grovel at her feet and beg for scraps of affection. I would not let her control me any longer. That weekend, I planned an escape with Eli to visit my parents' farm, desperate for even a day's reprieve from the choking venom of Jackson and his manipulative mother. As soon as we arrived, Eli relaxed into the warm embrace of my parents, free from the smothering weight of the Stanhopes' expectations. Yet Jackson still found a way to ruin even this small oasis of peace. His barrage of demanding calls reminded me I did not have the luxury of freedom. I was trapped, bound by vows and violence. My only hope was Eli, my beloved boy, whose smile sustained me. As long as I had him, I could survive anything. When we returned, Eleanor's talons were out. She scolded Eli for being away so long, glaring at me as if I had committed an unforgivable sin by spending a weekend away. My son's eyes pooled with tears as she smothered him. This was my life now, a battlefield where my only ammunition was patience and resilience. I had to stay strong for Eli. Little did I know Jackson had schemes of his own brewing as he spun his web of lies against me. My friend Harper called, gushing about this amazing new widower she was seeing. My blood turned to ice when she described her whirlwind romance with none other than Jackson himself. Rage, betrayal, and humiliation tore through me like shrapnel. For this final treachery, Jackson would pay the ultimate price. My hands trembled as I set my phone down, Harper's bubbly voice still echoing in my mind. The initial shock gave way to anger as the reality of Jackson's betrayal sank in. My husband, the man I had built dreams with, now wooed my own friend behind my back. I had to warn Harper, though exposing Jackson's deception would no doubt ignite his rage towards me. My son Eli played on the living room floor as I composed myself before making the call, drawing strength from his innocence. "Avalon, I was just talking about you," Harper chirped. I cut through her enthusiasm sharply. "The man you're seeing, what's his name?" Jay Stanhope. Why do you ask?" she replied, surprise coloring her tone. Bile rose in my throat as my suspicions were confirmed. Jackson had spun a web of lies, preying on Harper's longing for love. I exposed his deception plainly, my voice quivering with anger and pain. A heavy silence followed, the weight of betrayal hanging between two friends. When I told Jackson I had uncovered his deceit, his expression hardened to stone. Eleanor watched with thinly veiled amusement as he exploded. "You had no right to meddle in my affairs," he bellowed. "Harper meant nothing, but your jealousy has cost me a valuable business connection." His callous words deepened the chasm between us. I was no longer his wife, just an obstacle to be demolished. Eleanor smirked, the chaos only furthering her twisted hold over her damaged son. In that moment I understood. It was time to leave. There was nothing left to salvage here. I had only endured this emotional warfare for my son's sake, but now I realized no child should see his mother thus degraded. As Jackson's tirade continued, I calmly packed our bags, comforting my confused and frightened son. Soon Eli would be safe and free from these toxins. I whispered a prayer of thanks that my parents had offered their farm as a refuge. Their warm embrace was medicine for my battered soul. Yet the Stanhope's venom followed us even to this pastoral escape. Eleanor and Jackson barraged me with calls and threats, promising to take Eli away for good. As my son played happily with my father's baby goats, blissfully unaware of the battle raging over him, my mother spoke words that would shape the course of my vengeance. Avalon, you must go back. Record their threats, document their lies, gather allies. Only then can you defeat them and free Eli from their clutches forever. I realized she was right. I had to shift from victim to warrior, or they would hunt me to the ends of the earth. If protecting my son meant destroying those who sought to harm us, so be it. I now understood the power I held as mother of Jackson's prized heir. Checkmate was still possible, no matter how ruthless the opponents. Jackson had dealt the first blow, but I would strike the final one. This was now a game of kings and pawns, where survivors take the prize. My son's future happiness hinged on my next moves. Failure was not an option. Too much was at stake. The kings would soon face their downfall. Returning to the battlefield took every ounce of my courage. Jackson's mask of civility had finally fallen, exposing the monster that lurked beneath. Home was now a minefield of emotional traps and verbal assaults. But my mother's words armed me for the fight ahead. I knew what needed to be done. I began documenting their deceit like an investigator, recording conversations, keeping a detailed log of Eleanor and Jackson's threats and manipulation. Though still nursing my wounds, I found purpose in preparing for the trials ahead. Justice would be done, no matter how powerful my adversaries imagined themselves to be. During a tense family dinner, Eleanor's snide comments pushed me to the edge. That Harper girl Jackson took up with, I knew she was familiar. Wasn't she your little friend, Avalon? Bile rose in my throat, but I simply gave a tight smile. I would not give her the satisfaction of seeing my pain. Jackson said nothing, suddenly finding his steak fascinating. After they left, I gently asked Eli about his time with his grandmother. The flower of innocence in his eyes wilted. She scares me sometimes, Mommy. Grandpa yells a lot, too. I don't like it there. His words ignited my fury once more. How dare they trample my son's fragile spirit and destroy the safety of his world? Jackson's mask fully fell away when I confronted him about his emotional abuse of our son. He shouted and slammed his fist on the table inches from my face. You turned my own son against me. I always knew you were inadequate as a mother. No wonder he prefers you. Eli began crying as his father raged. Seeing my son's tears, I swore Jackson would pay for every second of heartbreak he had caused. The next morning, as Jackson left on another suspicious business trip, I asked sweetly about his plans. His look of surprise at the sudden affection in my voice was satisfying. Little did he know I had installed tracking software on his phone and recording devices in his car. His villainy would soon be his undoing. My parents provided comfort from the emotional battlefield. Their embrace nourished my battered but unbroken spirit. Dad taught Eli to milk cows and make jam, simple joys that erased Jackson's poison. As I tucked my slumbering boy into bed, he murmured, "I feel safe here, Mommy." His peaceful sleep was answer to 100 prayers. When uncovering Jackson's location through the tracking software, I noted he had traveled to Harperstown for a suspicious overnight visit. The trap was set perfectly now. I could use his tryst as irrefutable evidence against him during divorce proceedings. Soon Eli and I would break free from these toxic chains forever. My chance for absolute victory was close at hand. I imagined Jackson and his mother utterly demolished by what I now held against them: videos, records, and witness accounts. They had played with fire by challenging me, never imagining the phoenix that could rise from my ashes. Now doom awaited them as karma prepared her devastating blow. My next family dinner was a viper's nest of passive aggression and thinly veiled threats. Eleanor made snide comments about my simple meatloaf, though just a year ago she had praised the same recipe. Jackson scrolled through his phone, not bothering to pretend interest in his wife and son any longer. I simply ate in silence, my quiet fury simmering beneath a mask of perfect calm. As I cleared the dishes after the tense meal, Eleanor cornered me. "Avalon, don't you realize you're preventing Jackson from reaching his full potential? The boy needs a proper partner, one from the right kind of family." Her words poured acid into my heart, but I did not flinch. I think a divorce would be best for everyone. Jackson has already found a more suitable match. At this final insult, something broke free inside me, a righteous rage against injustice that blocked out all fear. Meeting Eleanor's glare calmly, I replied, "If you try to take my son from me, I will reduce your entire family to ashes." Shock registered on her face. She clearly underestimated the strength a mother finds when defending her cub. Returning home, I ignored Jackson's drunken ramblings, mentally preparing for war. My nerves were iron. I felt no trace of doubt. Securing Eli's future meant annihilating my enemies by any means necessary. I had already endured the worst pain they could inflict. Their blows only honed my will to survive. I edited my documentation, tightening it into an impenetrable legal trap guaranteed to favor me in court. Jackson's credibility would be shattered, Eleanor's manipulation exposed. Justice would soon arrive on swift wings. Over the next weeks, I wore a disguise of normalcy while secretly meeting lawyers and a private detective to build my case. Arthur, an old family friend on the force, provided legal advice I knew Jackson would never see coming. Weeks of planning in secret were about to yield dark and brutal fruit. Soon after Jackson left for a work emergency, no doubt code for meeting Harper, I followed him at a distance in a rented car. As expected, he drove straight to her apartment where she welcomed him with a kiss. The sight turned my stomach, but I captured images to twist the knife during divorce proceedings. My evidence folder grew thicker by the day. When Jackson returned the next morning reeking of Harper's perfume, I calmly informed him I wanted full custody of Eli and would be seeking a restraining order. A satisfying flicker of panic flashed across his arrogant face. The predator had just realized he had become prey. My mercy towards him evaporated like dewdrops in this moment. All that remained was the satisfied hum of sweet revenge. Jackson exploded into wrathful threats when I revealed my legal plans, confirming once and for all the true ugliness festering within him. He slammed his fists and overturned furniture, spewing graphic ways he would make me suffer. As he raged, I simply tapped a button on my phone to start an audio recording. His venomous words would seal his fate in court. I stood motionless as his anger crashed over me like waves over a rock. When his tirade finally exhausted itself, I stepped forward calmly. "I once loved the man you pretended to be, but now I see the truth. You will never hurt me or my son again." Jackson's face contorted into a hateful sneer. "You poisonous witch! I should have crushed your spirit years ago. My mother always warned you would betray me." He turned and stormed away, no doubt seeking solace between Harper's sheets. I had known divorce would provoke his inner demons, but I welcomed the confrontation. The law would grant me sole custody the moment I presented a fragment of the evidence I now held against Jackson and Eleanor. Justice would be done. In the quiet aftermath, I noticed Eli watching from the hallway, holding his stuffed bear in fear. I enveloped my son in fierce love, sadness mingling with relief that he had witnessed his father's true colors. "Don't worry, my darling. We are going to be happy and safe soon. I promise." Our new apartment provided refuge as the divorce exploded into being. On my lawyer's advice, I took Eli and moved out quickly, leaving Jackson snarling threats in our empty house. The legal team efficiently turned my evidence against my husband and mother-in-law into an airtight case for full custody of my son. Meanwhile, Jackson spiraled into self-destruction, drunk and violent. His business trips to meet Harper did little to numb his rage at losing control of me and his prized son. His mother desperately tried to restrain his reckless behavior, fearing damage to her family's esteemed social status. But the foundations of her carefully curated image were cracking. Soon Jackson would bring the whole rotting edifice crumbling down. Harper tried calling me, stuttering apologies filled with excuses about Jackson manipulating her loneliness. I simply wished her well with a smile. She was not to blame for my husband's deceit. In truth, I pitied her, for Jackson would surely break her heart too once he had extracted all he needed from her, then toss her aside. Berating Harper would serve no purpose, so I focused on my true goal, severing all ties to my abusers. The turning point arrived during an ugly custody hearing, where my ironclad documentation and audio evidence demolished any defense Jackson tried to mount. As he fumed, Eleanor screeched accusations, and their lawyer sat in stunned silence. I maintained perfect, smiling calm. I had played the long game masterfully, luring them into revealing their own wretchedness before systematically destroying them. Soon Eli and I would be reborn from the ashes of the Stanhope's smoldering ruin. The day of reckoning arrived with poetical perfection on Thanksgiving. I had invited Harper along with Jackson and Eleanor, presenting the image of a perfect hostess. My real purpose was setting the stage for their final demolishment. I had told Harper part of the truth, that Jackson had deceived us both and was still clinging to her. But she foolishly insisted on seeing the best in him, still enchanted by his hollow charm. Well, her naive blindness would end today. My parents joined us, bolstering my drive for justice. My evidence file and lawyer's number waited in my room, ready for use. I had forwarded videos of Jackson's raging threats along with records of Eleanor's manipulation to key contacts as insurance. If I did not make it through today unscathed, their own ugliness would trigger mutually assured destruction. When the Stanhopes arrived, I received them warmly, playing the role of forgiving ex-wife to lure them into complacency. Jackson overplayed the charm while Eleanor critiqued the menu I had slaved over, predictably ungrateful. During dinner, I made sure to position Harper beside Jackson. My friend giggled and blushed whenever he whispered flirtatiously in her ear. Watching them, my family members bristled with outrage on my behalf. I gave them subtle signals to wait as baiting my trap. Justice would be served cold. Dessert was interrupted by the ring of Jackson's phone. He glanced at the screen and silenced it quickly. But my hawk-eyed mother caught a glimpse of the name Amanda with a heart emoji before it disappeared from view. I seized the moment, my fury channeled into an eagle's deadly resolve. Looking directly at Harper, I asked gently, "Jackson, darling, who was that calling?" All eyes froze on my husband as he gulped nervously. Turning to my friend, I continued, "Harper, do you know if Jackson sees other women?" My words hung in the air like a guillotine blade, because he certainly lied to both of us. As understanding dawned on Harper's face, her shock quickly morphed into humiliation and heartbreak. As she erupted in sobs, my family surrounded her in solidarity, while Eleanor watched in horror as her web of lies fell apart. Jackson sat mute and stone-faced at the unraveling of his schemes. The leading man had lost control of his plot. I ended the final act by placing my evidence binder on the table. As my parents comforted Harper, I calmly informed Jackson he would sign the divorce settlement immediately, granting me full custody. Refuse, and this evidence destroys what remains of your life. My words rang with cold authority. Justice had been served. In the aftermath, Jackson's world collapsed with satisfying swiftness. My evidence proved his deceit was far more extensive than I had even realized. The detailed records showed him shamelessly manipulating numerous women for money and status, with Harper and I as just two in a long string of victims of his scams. With his credibility and social standing annihilated, Jackson descended rapidly into recklessness. He was fired from his prestigious family firm after showing up drunk to an important client meeting. Reports soon surfaced of him getting into fistfights at bars and clubs. His engagement to longtime girlfriend Amanda ended bitterly amid cheating allegations. Eleanor, once so proud and domineering, became a social pariah, shunned for enabling her son's abusive behavior. The Stanhope family name lay in tatters. She retreated from public view, suddenly plagued by poor health with no one left to dote on her. My mother commented it was likely her heart had shriveled so completely that her body could no longer sustain itself. I felt no pity watching the old crone reap what she had sown. With the Stanhopes decimated, I focused fully on rebuilding my life with Eli. My divorce settlement allowed me to buy a lovely home near my parents, where Eli and I discovered tranquility once more. I returned to work at the local library, finding meaning in simple joys and community after years trapped in toxic chaos. My only lingering anger was towards the justice system that had allowed Jackson to inflict maximum damage on me despite mounds of evidence. The lawyer fees had nearly bankrupted me even as Jackson walked free with light penalties. I now understood how power and privilege stacked the odds, forcing victims to fight tooth and nail for basic dignity. Harper remained a steadfast friend, helping me advocate for legal support for abused women struggling to escape manipulative partners. Her warmth and loyalty proved she was a victim as well. Together we found healing and meaning. One morning I arrived early to open the library and noticed a delivery by the back door. A beautiful bouquet of flowers waited in a vase with an unsigned note reading simply, Please forgive me." I recognized Harper's handwriting immediately. We cried together as 8 years of pain and betrayal washed away, leaving only relief that the long nightmare was over. A week later, my lawyer informed me that several women allegedly assaulted by Jackson had successfully pressed charges against him based on my evidence. He now awaited trial behind bars. The country club playboy had lost everything from his kingdom to his freedom itself. Justice had caught up to him at long last, as I knew it would. Watching Eli dance carefreely at my parents' summer picnic, his laughter healing old wounds, I knew I had reclaimed what mattered most. The predators who once haunted us would never steal our joy again. The past was just a fading nightmare banished by the dawn.
My name is Nancy, and there's a world out there, unknown to me until childhood, when I first glimpsed it on TV. Wild animals roamed landscapes I'd never seen, and people spoke languages foreign to mine. The desire to explore this unknown world up close ignited within me, so boldly. I pursued studies abroad during college. My destination, the very unknown world I yearned to discover. Despite the language barrier, the people thrived, and the land teemed with creatures amidst breathtaking landscapes. Eager for others to share in this wonder, I secured a job at a travel agency. Responsible for tour planning, I drew upon my study abroad experiences, managing everything from site inspections to negotiations. Balancing work and personal life, I married Daniel, whom I met through work. Yet, a problem surfaced with my mother-in-law, Barbara. Firm in her belief that women should remain homemakers post-marriage, Barbara clashed with my modern views. Though I respected her perspective, I couldn't let her dictate my life. To evade living under her roof, I proposed buying a house to Daniel, believing it would alter perceptions. Daniel readily agreed, and we acquired a home. However, Barbara's visits became frequent, disrupting our weekends with noise and unwelcome opinions. Despite the tension, Barbara nonchalantly announced an upcoming trip, assuming I'd join. When I hesitated due to work commitments, she accused me of neglecting family. Feeling cornered, I acquiesced, though begrudgingly. As tension simmered, Barbara, with a sly tone, reminded me of my profession, insisting I handle the trip arrangements. Reluctantly, I obliged, concealing my irritation. The destination? London, where my study abroad journey had unfolded. I still have many connections there. It might be challenging for other regions, but perhaps I can manage London. All right, I'll give it a try. I've already got the plane tickets, so just book the hotel. Odd, you've booked the flight, but not the hotel. I managed to get the tickets by redeeming my card miles for first-class seats. Barbara grinned with evident delight. Daniel, leaning in, remarked, "First class, seriously, Mom?" "Yes, it's a first-class trip abroad," Barbara confirmed, her grin widening. "We'll depart at 9:30 p.m., so you can work until the last minute," she added cheerfully. Although her enthusiasm seemed genuine, I couldn't ignore the mountain of branded goods piled on the sofa. "I see," I said, catching on to the implication of her joy. Realizing the need to secure accommodations quickly, I decided to leverage my old contacts from my study abroad days to secure a hotel referral. Making a call, I arranged for accommodations for 4 people in 2 rooms. On the day of the trip, the short notice left me unable to take the day off work. Barbara instructed me to meet at the airport by 6:00 p.m. If I wrap up work soon, I can make it, I reassured myself. Suddenly, Barbara called. "Hello, Barbara," I answered. "Nancy, are you done with work?" she inquired. "I'm just leaving the office now, so I'll be at the airport after 6:00 p.m. "Oh, that's too bad," Barbara responded. "Well, we're actually leaving at 6:00 p.m. "Ah, no way!" I exclaimed, rushing back to my desk to check the flight schedule. London. London. I found the 9:30 p.m. flight I initially heard about, but there was also a flight leaving after 6:00 p.m. Could it be this flight after 6:00 p.m.? Yes. So the family is going without you. I felt furious. How could she plan so thoroughly to leave me out? Unforgivable. But showing my frustration would play into Barbara's hands. I had to hide my feelings, even if it meant putting on a brave face. Clenching my teeth, I said to Barbara, "I'm the one who booked the hotel. So Daniel knows the hotel name. You can't do anything now." I could hear Barbara laughing on the other end. Annoyed, I said, "Go without me then." "That's better." "We don't need a useless wife like you," she retorted. "Useless? What do you mean? Don't you know what you neglect? Housework for your job." "Daniel is complaining," she continued. "True, I'm busy with work, but I've never slacked off on housework." "Why would Daniel complain? Can I speak to Daniel?" I asked. Barbara's mocking voice was followed by Daniel's greeting. "Hello, what's up, Nancy?" "What do you mean you're complaining about me?" I asked him. "Just that you're always at work and neglecting me," he responded. "Neglect? I prepare meals, clean, and do laundry. But you think you're doing it all yourself, right?" "That's not true," I retorted. "Shouldn't you respect me more? Listen to me? Do things for me?" I questioned. "I know a wife who supports her husband is valued. It's convenient for the husband, but that's not all there is to a marriage," I continued. I never badmouthed Daniel in public, always praising him, but not when it's just the two of us. But we need to speak our minds when alone. Otherwise, our relationship would fall apart, and I'd become nothing but a servant to Daniel. Yet he kept complaining about me, I explained. "So you think you can act all high and mighty because you earn more?" I challenged him. "Not at all," he replied. "That annoys me, and you're leaving me behind for that?" I asked incredulously. "Yeah, consider it stress relief. I'll bring you a souvenir, so don't worry," he assured me. "That's not the point," I insisted. Clearly, Daniel was taking me for granted. "If that's how it is, I have my own plans." "Fine, enjoy the trip." "Will do. Bye," I concluded, hanging up. Daniel sounded happy as he hung up. I was livid. I couldn't stand the self-centered Daniel and Barbara. "Enjoy your trip without me, but be prepared. Even if you come back crying and apologizing, I won't forgive you." I rushed out of the office with my mobile phone, calling someone. "Hey." "Hello, it's Nancy. Are you free? I need to talk about that hotel booking. With the trip canceled, I had plenty of time. I'll settle everything now." I ran around with that determination. Then, the next evening, exhausted, I got home, and right then, the phone rang. "Hello, Nancy," said Barbara, sounding quite angry. I knew the reason, but pretended not to. "Barbara, are you enjoying the trip?" I asked. "This is no time for that. We can't check into the hotel. Did you have a reservation?" "You made the reservation, didn't you?" Barbara's tone grew more agitated. "I canceled it because I wasn't going," I replied. "Huh. What then? Where are we supposed to stay tonight?" Barbara's frustration was palpable. "I don't know," I admitted. Barbara's angry voice came through. "But she's in London. Her anger over the phone isn't scary at all. That's tough, being abroad without a hotel. You never know what might happen," I remarked. Wait, help me?" Barbara sounded panicked. Then, a faint voice in the background. "There's a canceled room. Anthony's negotiating for us to stay there," Daniel's voice reassured. "Is that true, Daniel?" Barbara demanded. "Looks like it'll be fine." "You see, Nancy, the room was available because I canceled it," Daniel explained. "But this was all part of my plan. My real aim was something else. Glad there was a vacancy. Thought you'd be smug about canceling our hotel, didn't you?" I retorted. "No, not really," Barbara laughed loudly. "Frustrated, aren't you? You can admit it if you're upset. I just canceled it because I wasn't going." Putting on a brave face. How pathetic. "Typical of Daniel's useless wife," Barbara continued. Tired of listening to her bragging, I quietly hung up the phone. She probably didn't even notice. I smiled a little at that thought. Anyway, just a few more days to endure. I braced myself and had dinner. A few days later, on my way back from a certain place, Barbara called again. "Hello, what's up, Nancy?" "What's going on again?" she asked. "Not again. What's wrong with this hotel?" I inquired. In short, they stayed in the room I canceled, thanks to Anthony's negotiation. They were supposed to stay for 4 days and check out today, but there was a problem. They were billed £8,000 by the hotel. What's the issue? I asked. It's £2,000 per night, right? That's about $2,500 per night in dollars. Ridiculous. It's for 2 rooms, right? So, about $1,200 per room. You told Daniel it was $300 per room per night. Yes, I did. So it should be $600 for 2 rooms. Why is it 4 times? I was astonished that they stayed without even checking the room rates. Well, I anticipated this, so I set it up accordingly. Anyway, Barbara making a fuss on the phone must be bothering others. I should calm her down. Hey, Nancy, can you hear me? Barbara's voice echoed through the phone. Barbara, can you be a bit quieter? I interjected. Why did you lie? She accused, without reflecting on herself. Exasperated, I began to explain to Barbara. The $300 rate was because I made the reservation. Huh, so because it was last minute? She questioned. I asked a friend who runs a hotel, I replied. A friend of yours? She inquired. Their hotel offers rooms for around $600 for 2 people, I explained. Then why $11,200? Barbara sounded flustered. That's the rate for a really nice room. My friend did me a favor, I clarified. A favor. Barbara sounded taken aback. When I heard from Barbara, there was no time left for the trip, so I told my friend any available room would do. The only vacancy was an expensive suite. My friend kindly gave a discount. I continued. Barbara left me behind without asking. I immediately told my friend the situation and got the room canceled. But I couldn't just leave Barbara and the others without a hotel, so I asked to accommodate them at the regular price if they came. I knew Barbara, having heard about the hotel from Daniel, wouldn't check the price. And I was right. Come on, you should have said that. Yelling won't help. Please make sure to pay, I urged. We're not paying, Nancy. You pay, Barbara retorted. But if you don't pay, you'll be arrested, I warned. Arrested. Of course, troubles abroad can be messy. Are you okay with that? Barbara seemed at a loss for words. As I was about to hang up, thinking I had won, Barbara shouted, Don't mess with me. You'll regret this when I get back. That's fine, but we're strangers now, right? I responded. Huh. Why? Barbara sounded confused. Well, you said it was a family trip. So since I'm not there, I'm not family, right? I reasoned. Before she could finish, Anthony's voice came from the phone. What's all this yelling about? Be quiet. It's embarrassing. Seizing the opportunity, I called out to him, Anthony, are you okay? How's your cold? I never had a cold in the first place. What's going on? Anthony's voice was filled with concern. It seemed Anthony took the phone from Barbara. His voice grew louder. Nancy, can you explain everything? I can, actually. I told him everything from the beginning. I see. So that's why you didn't come. I'm sorry. I wanted to go. Anthony's voice softened. No, Nancy, you're not at fault. It's Barbara and Daniel. Anthony affirmed. From afar, I heard a whimper. Barbara and Daniel seemed frightened by Anthony's anger. Realizing this, an idea came to me. Should I tell Anthony what Barbara has been doing? I thought so. Anthony, can I tell you something? I asked hesitantly. What is it? Anthony replied. Barbara comes to our house almost every weekend, and when she throws away receipts at our place, there are piles of them, I explained. What receipts? For branded goods? Anthony sounded surprised. It's fine to buy a lot, but please dispose of the receipts at your place. Barbara wasn't just being noisy at our house. She was secretly buying branded goods and disposing of the receipts at our place to hide it from Anthony, thinking she wouldn't get caught this way. Of course, I concluded. I'm a witness, so it's pointless. But it seemed Anthony didn't know. That's interesting to hear. Also, please tell her to stop bad-mouthing you at our place. She talks about me too. Yes, she says you don't earn much. Daniel, too, calls him a useless dad, I think. Anything else? Anthony prompted. So I spilled all my pent-up frustrations to Anthony. Of course, some of it wasn't directly related to Anthony, but he listened silently. At the end, he apologized to me. I'm sorry. Now I understand. Understand what? Why Barbara didn't want to use her card to pay for the hotel. Maybe probably because the cost was much higher than she expected, close to her credit limit. I'm sorry, Whoever's voice interjected. That was unforgivable. All your wasteful spending, Barbara. I want a divorce. Please don't do that. Anthony's shouting was followed by Barbara's pitiful voice. He also yelled at Daniel. Daniel, why don't you defend your wife? Don't come to my house anymore. Reflect on this alone, Anthony said firmly. Yes, sir. Daniel sounded unusually obedient. Probably he thought being banished from his parents' house wasn't a big deal. That's when I struck the final blow. So, Daniel, looks like you're going to live alone now, huh? What do you mean? Suddenly, Daniel's voice got louder. He must have grabbed the phone. I moved my phone a bit away and told him the situation. Daniel, I want a divorce. A divorce? You're joking, right? No, I'm serious. I've already sold the house. You sold it? Why would you do that without telling me? That's our house. No, it's my house. But I was paying the mortgage too. No, you weren't. What do you mean? I was giving you part of my salary every month. That was for living expenses. A few hundred isn't enough for the mortgage. Daniel had been giving me a few hundred monthly. It helped with living expenses, but not enough for the mortgage. So I paid it alone. The house was in my name, so there was no room for complaint. This incident made me decide to divorce Daniel. I sold the house full of unpleasant memories of living with him. So you'll be living alone now. Wait, think it over. No, it's decided. I'll contact you once I find a place. Then I'll send you the official notice. Official notice? Of course, I'll be claiming compensation in the divorce. Wait for me. Daniel was crying on the other end, but I didn't care. I hung up the phone. After that, Daniel and I divorced following discussions. Anthony actually divorced Barbara too. Barbara, due to her wasteful spending, didn't get any compensation in the divorce and was left on her own. I was just thrown out of the room. Daniel was nearly broke, apparently having spent everything except the few hundred he gave me each month on frivolous things. Now he's living in a rundown apartment and commuting to work. But things might be better for Daniel than Barbara. With no house or money and Daniel's place too small, Barbara had to take a live-in job. She's working hard from morning till night now. As for me, I'm doing great being single. I have more free time and can handle overseas negotiations. I've become a relied-upon figure at work, even hearing talks of a promotion to department head today. I'm busy flying around the world, planning new tour packages. I must share something difficult with you. My girlfriend, who is 20 years younger than me, is expecting a child. I have a preference for younger partners, so I've made the decision to get a divorce. Is that okay with you? All right. If you want a divorce, go ahead, but please take good care of our son. What? You should take the boy with you. Haven't you spoiled him enough? No, I can't. Because he is? I closed my mouth right there. If this conversation were to remain between us, there wouldn't be any problem. However, Ken must have overheard it from his place in the room. What would he think if he heard this? That was my only concern. Still, I must respond. Otherwise, this man will not understand the gravity of the situation. Destroying our happiness and only thinking about his own, that's too selfish. I won't stand for it. Just as our happiness was taken away, I want to take his away too. Driven by such feelings, I decided to confront Ted with a shocking truth. My name is Mila Davis. I am 41 years old, living with my husband Ted and our high school junior son Ken. I married Ted 13 years ago when I was 28. Back then, I was an insurance saleswoman visiting various companies to sell insurance. That's when I met Ted, who was working at a local import-export business, having recently divorced his wife. My wife cheated on me and left me. Now I'm living with my 5-year-old son, just the two of us, and it's pretty lonely, he said, looking somewhat sorrowful. Every time I visited Ted's company for work, I started talking to him. Eventually, Ted asked me, "Would you like to go out together?" But we never went out, just the two of us, because Ted always brought his son Ken along. He can't stay at home alone, right? I'd really love for you to be my son's new mom, but I guess you wouldn't want to marry a man with a child, he said. Seeing him like that, I thought he truly cherishes his child. If he could care for a child like that, then surely he'd care for his family. So I decided to marry Ted. But that was all a performance to marry me. In fact, as soon as we got married, Ted changed. I quit my job and became a housewife. Housework and childcare became my job, which wasn't a problem, but Ted started neglecting Ken. Before our marriage, he even brought Ken along on our dates. But after our marriage, he didn't even look at Ken, not just on weekdays, but even on weekends. Ted never talked to Ken, never took him out, never played with him, nothing. Even after Ken started elementary school, Ted's attitude didn't change. I went to all the school events alone, and he totally ignored all events that parents should join and enjoy together. You could at least attend some of the school events with Ken, I told him once. Ted made a grimace, signed annoyance, and said, "Sorry, but I'm just tired from work." What? Oh, be quiet. Taking care of our son is your job as his mother, right? Just do it properly, he shouted, ending the conversation. What happened to the man I knew before we got married? I felt a twinge of regret. Then, one day, Ken had just come home from elementary school and was helping me prepare dinner when a message from Ted arrived on my phone. Wait, what? He's bringing his subordinates home from now on. Apparently, he was going to bring several colleagues home. Ted had just been promoted to team leader, so he probably wanted to deepen his relationship with his new subordinates. What should I do? We don't have any food stored. They would surely end up drinking at our home. And if that's the case, we'll need some snacks. It's not even an hour's drive from the office to our home. After some thought, I decided to go to the nearby supermarket to buy some ingredients. When I arrived home, I immediately started cooking in a rush. I'll help too, offered Ken. Oh, thank you. Then, could you please get the dishes ready? We worked hard, but there were limits to what we could prepare. Ted arrived home when only about half of the preparations were done. I'm home. Hey, I brought my colleagues, Ted shouted at the entrance. I greeted them briefly and led them to the room, serving beer and snacks. As I contemplated the next dish, Ted came into the kitchen and asked, "Hey, what's happening with the food? I told you in advance. I'm cooking right now. There are snacks, so it should be okay for now. What have you been doing? If you could notify me a bit earlier, stop complaining. You should have this ready. Do you want me to be embarrassed?" I was shouted at and left speechless. There were countless things I wanted to rebut, but the sound in the kitchen could be heard in the living room. The guests must have felt uncomfortable too. Thinking so, I couldn't say anything in response. In the end, I silently endured our guests, but once they had left, I had a big fight with Ted. I was angry at Ted for shouting at me just because of his own convenience. Ted puckered his lips and said in a childish manner, "Okay, fine. I'll have a party and some venues from now on. Happy now." After that, Ted started hanging out more. His spending got wilder, and he would head out early on his days off. By then, Ken had become a 7th grade student, and it started costing money for things like after-school programs. That's when I talked to Ted about wanting to start a part-time job. A part-time job. What, you want money for leisure? No, that's not it. It's for things like Ken's tuition for the after-school programs. Oh, I see. Do whatever you want. Even though Ted, perhaps because he was drunk, gave a careless response, I got his word, and so I started a part-time job as an insurance agent. I asked a former boss from the company I worked at before marriage to make me a part-time employee. This should make things a little easier. Even then, because Ted complained, I couldn't slack off on housework. The time I could work was limited, and I had to prepare dinner before Ted got home. I managed my time well and kept working. Then, one day, I accidentally let work run late. I hurried home, but Ted had already returned. As soon as he saw me, Ted asked with a sullen face, "Where have you been?" "I was at my part-time job." "Part-time job? You weren't cheating on me, were you?" Ted stared at me intently. "There's no way that's true." I denied it firmly, but Ted kept looking at me with suspicious eyes. Just as I was wondering what to do, Ted reached out for my smartphone. "Let me see. I'll check if there are any men's names." "Stop it. Shut up." Ted forcefully snatched my phone and began to check the contacts. He quickly found my boss's name. "Hey, who's this? It's a man's name, isn't it? He's your lover, ain't he? All right then." Before I could react, Ted dialed my boss. "Stop it. You just keep quiet." Thankfully, the misunderstanding was cleared up quickly. I extended my sincere apologies to my boss, urging Ted to do the same. However, he simply looked away, blaming me for making the situation appear dubious. "Your fault for making it look like you're doing something wrong," he insisted. Since then, our relationship took a downward turn. Even as Ken progressed to the 9th grade, nothing changed. I couldn't help but question whether it was okay to continue in this strained relationship. Despite my concerns, I struggled to find a way to mend our relationship. Before I knew it, Ken had become a senior in high school, preparing for college. Recently, the atmosphere between Ted and me had turned icy, and arguments at home became rare. At least this way, it wouldn't adversely affect Ken's studies. I thought things could remain like this until Ken entered college. Then, one day, my job required me to be near Ted's workplace. If our relationship had been better, I would have invited him to lunch. As I muttered this, I noticed Ted's car across the intersection. "Wait, is that Ted?" "With who?" Squinting, I saw two people laughing and chatting, and the word infidelity flashed in my mind. Accusing others of infidelity while doing it yourself, what a joke. I was too stunned to say anything. Secretly, I took a picture of them and went to a private detective to investigate Ted. I probably knew the answer already. The idea of divorce was already planted in my mind. But evidence was crucial, so I waited for the results of the investigation. About a month later, the results arrived, and they were damning. He really had the nerve. Just divorcing didn't seem enough anymore. How should I get back at him? On a certain day off, lost in my thoughts, Ted, who was supposed to be out, came home unexpectedly. Rushing over to me, he explained, "I'm sorry, but my girlfriend, who's 20 years younger, is pregnant." What? I couldn't believe my ears, but there he was, a smirk on his face, declaring, "So yeah, my girlfriend, who's 20 years younger, is pregnant. I prefer younger women, so I'm gonna divorce you. That's fine, right?" Well, he certainly had the guts to confess his affair himself. However, I saw this as an opportunity. With this in mind, I decided to seize the moment. "Go ahead and get married, but please take care of our son." With a smile on my face, I said this, seemingly catching Ted off guard. "What? You should take our son with you. I've always been so fond of him." "I don't want to, because that boy is—" I carefully chose my words, aware that Ken, studying in his room, could hear me. What would he think if he heard this? That was my only concern. Nevertheless, if I didn't stand up to him now, he wouldn't understand the gravity of the situation. It was far too convenient for him to destroy our happiness and go off to find his own. I wouldn't let that happen. I wanted to snatch away his happiness, just like ours was taken from us, driven by these thoughts. I decided to confront Ted with a truth that would stun him. "I hate to break it to you, but isn't Ken your son?" "He's not mine." "What are you talking about? We're married, right?" "If we're married, then our child is our child, right?" Ted declared, looking smug. At that moment, I was at a loss for words. Is this guy an idiot? He's 4 years older than me, and he knows nothing. I was too stunned to say anything, surprised at his lack of understanding. I exhaled deeply and hit Ted with the truth. Ken is your child with your ex-wife, right? So what? In other words, to me, Ken is your stepchild. To make a stepchild one's own, one must adopt them. Ha, adoption. Ted furrowed his brow. Generally speaking, stepchildren remain just that, stepchildren. To act as a real parent, the only way is to adopt them legally. Without doing that, you can't have parental rights, and the child won't be legally recognized as yours. Of course, socially, they may be seen as your children, but there's no legal binding. A step-parent has no legal obligations, and a stepchild has no rights to the parent's inheritance. I explained to Ted, I didn't adopt Ken when I married you. That's why I can't take Ken with me. Hold on, so does that mean I have to take care of Ken? That seems to be the case. Although I wouldn't say you'd be charged with parental negligence just for leaving him alone. Ken is a high school student, an age where parents are obligated to raise their children. In other words, it can be said that Ted can't just abandon him. While looking stunned, Ted pleaded with me, come on, that can't be right. What can't? I have a baby on the way, and I plan to live with my newborn and my soon-to-be wife, just the three of us. That was the condition for marrying Kay. Oh, so the woman he cheated with is named Kay. So, that has nothing to do with me. It's got everything to do with you. This could all be resolved if you just take Ken. But I've told you I can't, right? Just find a way. Please don't ruin my happiness, he begged. Don't ruin his happiness. I was shocked at his audacity. After shattering our happiness, he doesn't get to demand his own happiness. With clenched teeth, I told Ted, no matter what you say, what can't be done can't be done. You should ask your girlfriend Kay. You're truly heartless. Fine, you'll regret this. Ted slammed the table and stood up. As he picked up his cell phone, he walked out of the room, making a call in the hallway. Yeah, that's right, so. I could hear his voice. Eventually, Ted came back and said to me, just wait. I'm bringing Kay over. What? You're bringing her here? Of course, because you're refusing to budge. I have no other choice. For some reason, Ted shouted angrily, seeming to believe he wasn't in the wrong. Well, we still have to discuss the division of property, and this might make things easier. With that thought, I quietly watched Ted leave. About an hour had passed since Ted left the house. He returned, bringing a woman with him. As I stole a glance at her, she greeted with a look of discontent. Ah, hi! She didn't even attempt to meet my gaze. I could somewhat understand her feelings. Meeting the spouse of the person you're having an affair with, no matter how you think of it, cannot be a pleasant experience. Regardless, Kay turned out to be the woman who had been in Ted's car that day. I can't deny thinking it's all because of this woman, but thanks to her, I can bring Ted down to his lowest. With that thought, a smile naturally spilled onto my face. How should I start the conversation? While I was considering this, Kay spoke up first. You're Myler, right? Don't you think your child is adorable? You've lived together for about 13 years, haven't you? Are you talking about Ken? If so, I do think he's adorable. I consider him as much my child as if he were my own. Then why are you abandoning him? You should take him with you. I stared at Kay, sweat beginning to bead on her forehead. I knew it. She condemns me with her words, but she doesn't truly mean it. I recalled the results of the investigation into Ted's conduct. If the current situation described there about Ken is true, it makes sense why she would argue like this. So, I decided to shake them up. I'd love to take him with me, but no matter how adorable he is and no matter how much I love him, legally only Ted is Ken's parent. I can't become Ken's parent. But yes, there's also the option of not getting a divorce, and you need to raise your child by yourself. Upon hearing this, Kay flinched. She then turned to Ted and said, I can't raise a baby on my own. Don't worry, I'll take care of our child. Besides, I'm definitely getting a divorce, and I want to be with you. At that point, I interrupted. What are you talking about? It hasn't been decided whether we're getting a divorce yet. Shut up. I'm definitely getting a divorce. So you're taking Ken with you. We're going to discuss that later. We're getting nowhere. Okay, what do you think? I turned the conversation over to Kay. She made a pout and said, I can't raise someone else's child, even if it's the child of the man you love. Course not. I love Ted, not some child of Ted and another woman. Oh, I see. But isn't your argument a bit strange? Why don't you want to raise someone else's child? That's your personal opinion, and I won't blame you for it. But you're okay with making Ted raise another person's child, right? As soon as I said that, Kay's face turned suddenly pale. At the same time, Ted tilted his head, questioning, What are you talking about? I'm talking about the baby, Kay's baby in her belly. This child is mine. I told you that before. While Ted seemed puzzled, I continued, You did say that, but it's odd. According to what I investigated, the father of Kay's child should be another man. As soon as I broke the news, Ted turned to Kay. With her face pale, Kay looked down, and Ted stared at her. The whole scene was so ridiculous that I nearly burst into laughter. Ted interrogated Kay, asking if what I said was true. Kay banged on the table, arguing back, Don't be stupid. The father of this child is you, Ted. But I calmly told her, That's not true. I have proof. Look. Saying this, I laid out a single photo on the table, an image obtained through a private investigation. The picture showed Kay and an unknown man talking in front of an obstetrician's office. With a private investigation, they also checked if she was cheating. According to that, she had a man she was seeing, and the child in her belly was his. Kay started to stutter, unable to speak. Seeing her like this, Ted seemed to have understood everything, collapsing in despair. That's why you should divorce me and raise the child together, I suggested. Well, Ted, you'll be raising someone else's child. But okay, you're okay with that, right? No way. Don't forget about Ken, okay? Ted pleaded. Wait, let's get back together, Mela. If I break up with her, you won't divorce, right? What? You're saying whatever suits you. Sorry, but I was also planning to divorce, so this comes at the right time. And I'll claim a hefty division of property. Saying so, I slammed the evidence of their cheating on the table, photos of the two of them cheating, including Kay and the unknown man. Ted picked up one of the photos and shouted at Kay, This lying woman. It's all ruined because of you. That's my line. You should have thought I would prefer a younger man, Kay retorted. Suddenly, Ted and Kay started fighting amongst themselves. Fed up, I said, Take your fight somewhere else, and kicked them out of the house. After that, I went to Ken's room, gently knocking on the door. Ken peeked out. I'm sorry. You heard the conversation, didn't you? Well, yeah, but that was all on my dad. It's not like it's your fault or anything. But I'm totally fine, really. I'll be a college student next year, and I'll make my dad pay for the move and then do whatever I want. Ken flashed a slight smile, seeming more mature than I had thought. I was relieved to see my son's growth. However, his father, Ted, has not matured at all. No matter how many times I tried to contact him, he stopped answering my calls. Even after a few days had passed, the situation remained unchanged. The divorce negotiations wouldn't proceed like this, and he doesn't seem to be coming home either. Troubled, I decided to go to Ted's company, but showing up suddenly might just be a nuisance. So I contacted Ted's boss, Mr. Wilson, before heading to his company. When I arrived at the company, Mr. Wilson promptly attended to me and summoned Ted to his office. At the same time, he also called for Kay. With the two of them in front of me, I addressed Ted. You know why I'm here, right? What's it? Because you won't cooperate with the divorce discussions. How much longer do you intend to avoid addressing this? I asserted with conviction, but Ted simply shrugged in response. On the contrary, Kay remained silent since her arrival. You seem anxious that your boyfriend will discover your affair with Ted, don't you, Kay? I remarked, smirking. She appeared disheartened, as it seemed her true love also worked in the same company. It was only a matter of time before Kay's infidelity was laid bare. Ted resisted cooperation with the divorce discussions until the very end. However, after a stern reprimand from Mr. Wilson, he reluctantly agreed to participate. "Well, I'll be heading home now," I announced, and Ted expressed his dissatisfaction. "Showing up at my workplace? Are you kidding me? If this tarnishes my reputation, what will you do? You're the one at fault, not me. Besides, an affair won't get you fired. In fact, you can't be fired for having an affair." Ted argued, but I was indifferent. "It's not my concern. I came to discuss the divorce. Whether you quit your job or not is not my problem. The same goes for Kay. Well, do your best," I retorted, leaving Ted and Kay at the office. Later, through my lawyer, I successfully secured the division of property from Ted. However, according to Vice Mr. Wilson, complications arose after my departure from his office. The news of their affairs spread rapidly throughout the company, leading to a chain of events. Kay's boyfriend learned about the affair, and they had a significant argument, resulting in an immediate breakup. Enraged by the breakup, Kay demanded compensation from Ted for mental abuse. Naturally, Ted contested her claims, leading to a messy court battle. With the affair becoming public knowledge and court proceedings underway, both Ted and Kay had to leave the company. Ted struggled to find new employment, partly due to his age, and ended up working part-time at a local shop. Kay, pregnant and seeking refuge, retreated to her parents' house. Their lives became entangled in the complexities of the court case, and their reputations suffered. On the flip side, my life was on an upward trajectory. My boss suggested my return as a full-time employee, and I am now diligently working in that capacity. My relationship with Ken, who is focused on college preparations, is thriving. He even introduced me to his girlfriend, expressing his respect for me as a parent despite Ted being his father. Although I am no longer officially his mother, he appreciates my support during this crucial time. Greetings, everyone. I'm Skyla, and it was my sister-in-law, Julia, who encouraged me to share my story. Julia and I share a strong bond, having worked together before I met my now husband Noah through her. I am truly grateful to Julia for introducing us, and Noah and I have built a wonderful life together. While Julia and Noah are fantastic people, Noah's mother Susan is a different story. Upon our introduction, Susan openly expressed her dislike for me, creating tension in our relationship. Despite Noah's efforts to change his mother's opinion, Susan remained hostile. Over time, I realized the extent of her problematic behavior, especially during our wedding, where she falsely accused me of ruining her dress. Noah and I frequently clashed over his mother, but Susan's presence persisted. Being a single mom, Susan held onto Noah tightly, making it difficult for him to cut ties. The turning point occurred on our first anniversary when Julia warned me about Susan's plan to humiliate me. Susan, determined to tarnish my image, intended to frame me for stealing her heirloom necklace. Despite my attempts to intervene, Susan remained steadfast in her malicious intentions. This revelation added another layer of stress to our already strained relationship, as I navigated the challenges of preserving my marriage while dealing with Susan's disruptive presence. As our first anniversary approached, I faced the dilemma of inviting Susan or protecting my peace of mind. Despite Noah's desire to include his mother, the looming threat of Susan's schemes cast a shadow over what should have been a joyous occasion with close friends and family. I had hoped for a joyful celebration with everyone, but Susan's presence cast a shadow over the occasion. Despite learning about her plans from Julia, I hesitated to inform Noah. I believed he needed to confront the reality of his mother's actions and sever ties with her. Vigilant, I kept a watchful eye on Susan, but never caught her in the act. As the day of the anniversary party arrived, Julia and I remained unable to intercept Susan. However, the situation took a turn when Susan approached me with a menacing threat. During the party, As I was refilling my drink, she cornered me and accused me of orchestrating a scheme to take Noah away from her. Confused by her baseless claims, I questioned her connection between my marriage anniversary and her perceived competition. Undeterred, Susan insisted that I was responsible for Noah distancing himself from her. Her ominous warning hinted at the impending drama she had planned. Julia stayed close, recognizing the potential for Susan's disruptive behavior. As the party continued, Susan excused herself to put on her jewelry, only to return in distress, claiming her necklace and earrings were missing. Julia and I exchanged knowing glances, realizing that Susan had orchestrated a scheme to frame me. Despite Susan's theatrical display of distress, we maintained our composure, silently observing her attempts to convince the guests that I had stolen her jewelry. As people questioned her about the missing items, Susan tearfully responded, but suddenly feigned realization and exclaimed, "Wait a minute now. I understand that my jewelry has been stolen. I have a strong suspicion about who might have taken it." "Mom, what are you talking about? I'm sure you have misplaced it, and it's lying somewhere here. We don't have many visitors, so how could it get stolen?" "Noah, you don't understand. No one broke into the house or came from outside to steal my precious jewelry. It is your greedy wife who took it." Susan's accusation left everyone gasping, as she pointed directly at me as the culprit. Noah appeared shocked and somewhat embarrassed by his mother's words. Yet, I knew he trusted me implicitly and wouldn't entertain the idea for a moment that I'd stolen from his mom. Despite his love for his mother, his trust in me remained steadfast. "No, Mom, I don't think this is fair. You're throwing false accusations at Skyla. She would never do something like this. You must have misplaced it." No, Noah, you have to believe me. Remember how Skyla gushed about my heirloom jewelry? She knew I would never let her have it, so she stole it from me. "Mom, those are baseless accusations. Skyla was merely complimenting the design. She never once asked you to give her the necklace. Noah, my poor child, you are blinded by love. You have to see how vile and greedy your wife is. She is the one who stole my jewelry. That's why she never asked to borrow it from me. She wanted it for herself." At this point, Noah and Susan engaged in a heated argument, while the rest of the guests watched in disbelief. It was deeply embarrassing to be accused of theft on my own anniversary, something I never anticipated. However, I resolved to handle the situation with dignity. "Susan, you have some nerve to make accusations about me in my own home. You think I'm a lowly thief who would go after your jewelry? You are dead wrong. I am above that. Don't try to act all innocent and angelic, Skyla. I know for a fact that you took my jewelry last night. I saw you going into my room and coming out of the bag. I didn't think anything of it since it's your house, but now it all makes sense. You were stealing my jewelry. Susan, you need to stop making baseless assumptions. You have no right to ruin my reputation without any evidence. Who knows what you did with your jewelry? Don't blame it on me. Okay then, if I'm lying, why don't we go and check your room? I am 100% positive that I will find my jewelry there. We have plenty of witnesses as well. Noah, you cannot just invade our privacy like that. It's rude and disrespectful. Leave it be." At this point, I don't care, Noah. Your mom has taken it too far. If we don't allow it, everyone here will always doubt that I am a thief. It's a big allegation, Noah. Noah looked torn between his loyalty to his mother and his trust in me. While he understood his mother's frustration, he also recognized the severity of her accusations without evidence. It was clear that I needed to do everything possible to clear my name. So Noah relented and told his mom to go check our room. As we all went, people started looking around, including Susan, the woman who had stirred up this unnecessary drama. She went straight to my closet, pulled out the jewelry box, and exclaimed, "Look, Noah, I found my jewelry. It was in your wife's closet." I was right. She freaking stole my stuff because she is greedy and jealous. No, this is impossible. I know my wife wouldn't steal jewelry from you. I don't know how it got there. You didn't take it, right, Skyla? Of course, I didn't, Noah. You know I'm not a thief. Oh, really, Skyla? Then how did my previous jewelry set end up in your closet? There is no way you can get out of this, Skyla. You should have confessed and given me my stuff back. I'm sorry, Noah, but I think I need to call the police. Noah stood there looking dumbfounded while Susan called the police. Whispers circulated around the room, and many couldn't believe what they were witnessing. It was peak humiliation for me, but I stayed composed, waiting for the police to arrive as Susan berated me, calling me names and saying awful things. She said, "Noah, this is it. I know you didn't believe me when I said that Skyla is a gold digger. I'm sure now you know that I was right. You need to get smart and divorce her. No one wants a thief in the family. She will get arrested by the cops now anyway." Mom, I don't think it was wise of you to call the cops. You may not like what happens next. What do you mean, Julia? I wasn't going to let Skyla get away with theft. People who commit crimes should be punished. There should be no room for mercy, or else they will get worse. I think Julia's right, Susan. You shouldn't have called the cops. This will only turn worse for you. But since you already called the cops, there's no going back. How will this turn worse for me when you are the one committing a crime? I would love to see that smug smile off your face. At that point, I started to laugh. Julia was smirking and shaking her head. Everyone looked at me like I was crazy, supposedly getting arrested, but I was laughing anyway. After calming down, I said, "Susan, I must say you had a brilliant plan in mind. It's truly remarkable how you carefully planned to trap me and make me look like a thief." "What do you mean? You are a thief since you stole my stuff." "Oh God, Mom, have some shame. You are really crossing all limits. We know that Skyla didn't steal your jewelry. It's all a trap you set to make her look guilty." Julia shocked everyone with that declaration. Susan looked a little nervous, but she wasn't giving up her plan. She acted innocent and clueless, saying, "What are you talking about? I didn't do anything. Julia is the thief. Quit the act." "Susan, you thought that you could plan to trap me, and I wouldn't know. Julia told me everything. She told me you were going to accuse me of theft and trap me. I had known it before the party. How dare you say that? You are influencing my poor child and making her say things you have no proof of your claims, Mom." "We didn't have proof that you told me about your plan, but we do have a better way to prove what you did." "That's right. Now, to protect my reputation, I will tell you what proof I have. You called the cops, so I would have had to reveal this anyway." "What do you mean, Skyla? What proof are you talking about? Did you forget that we have cameras in the house?" Guys, the look on Susan's face was priceless. She turned as white as a ghost and started to shake a little. She had totally forgotten this fact. Maybe she assumed we only had cameras in the front yard. She may not have thought that the inside of my house also had cameras. Noah also suddenly remembered this, and he said, "That's right. Even I forgot about the cameras. We have cameras in the hallway with a clear view of every room from outside. We can check that for the true story." "Why would we do that, Noah? I'm your mom, and I'm telling you that Skyla stole from me. We don't have to prove my words. Why are you going back now?" "Mom, I thought you wanted to get to the bottom of this. I don't believe for a second that my wife is a thief. Even if you don't want to see the proof, I do. I need to see with my own eyes that she stole from you. Otherwise, I wouldn't believe it." Susan did her best to stop Noah from seeing the CCTV footage. I pulled out the saved footage on my phone, and we started to look through the videos. Meanwhile, the cops arrived and were given a brief rundown by everyone. Susan immediately went to them and said, "Officers, you need to arrest my daughter-in-law, Skylar. She stole my jewelry. We found it in her closet. She's a criminal. You need to arrest her now." "I don't think so, Susan. Officers, I have proof that my mother-in-law trapped me and is making false claims against me." "Mom, do you have solid proof against your mother-in-law?" "I do have solid proof. Actually, my home has cameras. This is the footage it recorded from yesterday. I handed my phone to the officers to see. Noah and the rest saw that footage later. The footage clearly showed that Susan took her jewelry box from her room and went into my room when I wasn't home. When she came out, she didn't have the box with her. It proved that Susan had put her jewelry box in my room on purpose. Everyone was shocked, and Noah straight up started to shout at Susan. Susan looked at him with fear in her eyes and actually started to cry. I had never seen Noah so angry. He said, "Mom, how could you do this to my wife? Skyla has been nothing but kind to you, and you backstab her like this. What is wrong with you?" "Noah, please let me explain." "No, just no. I don't want to hear anything from you, Mom. I'm done. I am so done with you. You tried to destroy my wife's life and reputation on our anniversary. I will never forgive that. I seriously cannot believe how low you stooped, Mom. God, I'm ashamed of having a mom like you. I don't think I want any contact with you from now on." "Julia, you are absolutely right in your decision. In fact, I have the same thing in mind. Mom, we are done. Don't ever come near me or my wife again. We will go no contact with you." Hearing that, Susan started to cry loudly. She clutched Noah's arm and tried to reason with Julia as well, begging them to forgive her. It was prophetic, and the guests were shaking their heads at Susan. Most of the guests were family, so they didn't hold back their criticisms against Susan. Not one person stood in her support. Finally, the cops told me, "Mom, do you know that you can file a report against your mother-in-law for these false accusations?" "Yes, I do know that, officer. Thanks for reminding me, though. So, would you like to go ahead and press charges?" "I would suggest you do that. We will arrest her now and get her out of your way. I see you have a party to host." "Yes, officers, I would like to press charges. Please arrest her and accept my apology for this drama." "Noah, you don't mind, do you?" "Absolutely not, Skyla. What Mom did was horribly wrong. You should be pressing charges. I give you my full support." Suddenly, it was all too much for our dear Susan. The cops descended on her and began handcuffing her while she struggled. They warned her that they could charge her for resisting arrest. But Susan wasn't in her right mind. She screamed and cried while begging Noah, Julie, and even me for forgiveness. "Skyla, please don't do this to me. I'm your mother-in-law. What will people say when they see me get arrested? You didn't care when you called the cops on me, now did you? Why should I care? I'm right to get you arrested. You have wronged me. I'm sorry, Skyla. I shouldn't have done this. Look, we're family. We can solve this between ourselves. There is no need to get the cops involved now." "Now, Susan, I distinctly remember you saying that criminals should not be spared, or else they will get worse. Seeing that you can easily evolve into a menace to this society, I absolutely have a duty as a concerned citizen to get you arrested." Susan looked shocked when I threw her words back at her. She also kept crying and mumbling apologies while everyone criticized her. The cops didn't waste much time and took her away. Noah and I went with them to the police station to file a report. Meanwhile, Julie stayed behind to tend to the guests. After Noah and I got to the police station, we filed an official report. I was going to sue her for good. She had done enough damage in my life and escalated badly. But still, I wanted Noah to be completely on board with me too. "Noah, are you sure you're okay with this?" "If you're not comfortable with a police report, we can always go back." "No, Skyla, we're not going back without a police report. We need to do this now. I have failed to protect you from my mom. She was about to destroy your life. I can't put this past me. You know that I didn't doubt you for a second, right?" "I know, Noah. Your mom being a psycho is not your fault. It's completely on her." Noah felt very guilty for not being able to protect me better. I understood his pain. He did love his mom very much. It's difficult to know that the woman who gave birth to you is an evil woman. But he still gave me the go-ahead to file the report, and so I did. He also promised never to let Susan back in our lives. We agreed to go to couples counseling to get a better grip on our marriage. Noah and I did return to the party, and we decided to continue with the celebration. The food was there, the people were there, and we were surrounded by supportive family and friends. We had no reason to just discard everything for one person. It was our anniversary after all. So, we resumed the celebrations and had a blast. Julia also had a great time too. All this while, my dear mother-in-law Susan was rotting in jail. So Susan didn't want the case to go to court after all. She made a settlement with my lawyer. I got a decent chunk of money while she got away with what she did. I really hope she changes her behavior after that. I say I hope because we are no longer in contact with Susan. Noah, me, and Julia all cut her off, as did some of her family members. The others simply don't entertain her anymore, but didn't block her straight away. I mean, who knows when she would fancy trapping other family members out of spite. Anyway, since we cut contact with Susan, my marriage improved a lot. The couple's counseling helped as well. We are currently expecting our first child and plan to keep our dear son away from Susan too. Starting tomorrow, please refrain from coming in. The manager, the boss's daughter, briskly informed me the moment I stepped into the office. Her disdain for me was palpable, though the extent of it caught me off guard. Stunned, I resolved to comply with her directive. Days passed, each one marked by the manager's relentless antagonism towards me. Assigned to the planning department, a position I had eagerly sought since joining the company, I devoted myself diligently to my tasks, yet my efforts were constantly undermined by the manager, who, being the president's daughter, wielded unchecked authority. One morning, summoned by the manager, I found myself subjected to her condescending scrutiny. "Do you even know why you're here?" she sneered. Her contempt for my alma mater, repeatedly dismissed as low-ranking, permeated her every word. The sense of alienation among my colleagues compounded my discomfort. "Effective immediately, your presence here is no longer required," she declared, her tone dripping with disdain. Her entourage echoed her derision, amplifying my humiliation. "Am I being fired?" I ventured, my voice betraying a mix of disbelief and resignation. The manager's response, laced with arrogance, left no room for doubt. Resigned to my fate, I swiftly completed the necessary resignation formalities. Months later, settled into a new role at a different company, I was inundated with pleas from my former employer to return. The president's desperation contrasted starkly with the manager's callous indifference. Reluctantly, I reached out to the president, who implored me to reconsider. Despite his earnestness, I couldn't overlook the systemic injustice I had endured. The company's pleas fell on deaf ears as I resolved to forge ahead without looking back. "I am no longer associated with that company," I asserted, my intention to end the call evident. "We can sort this out if we talk. I'll bring my daughter along next time so we can discuss this." The president countered before I disconnected without a reply. I intended to call back later. Upon arriving at work, I was informed of visitors. Doubtful, I made my way to the reception room, only to find the former company's president and the manager waiting. "You really came, and how do you know I'm working at this company?" I questioned, surprised. "The company I currently work for is a rival of my previous one." "Hey, Ben, I used my connections to find you." "For now, just take a seat," the president insisted. Reluctantly, I complied, meeting the manager's gaze, wondering if she had truly come to apologize. Suddenly, she slammed her hand on the table. "This makes no sense. Why should I have to come all this way for someone like him?" she exclaimed, her tone accusatory. "Excuse me, if you want to talk, you should be the one coming to me," she continued, her agitation palpable. Far from apologizing, she was yelling at me. "I don't really have anything to say," she ranted. "It's ridiculous to quit just because you got a little scolded at work." "Quit because I was scolded? What do you mean? I gave advice on your plan, but you didn't want to take it, so you quit." "That's not how a professional behaves," she insisted, her words bewildering. I couldn't comprehend what the manager was saying. "That's not how it happened." "I was suddenly told not to come to the company," I interjected, trying to clarify. "You think just because I'm the president's daughter, I got my position through connections, And you don't want to take advice from me, she continued, unfazed by my explanation. The manager kept spouting nonsense without caring about what I had to say. Wait, that's not true. You never even looked at my plans, I retorted, frustration mounting. Dad, I've been enduring until now, but I can't anymore. He always looked down on me because I'm a woman, she accused, her tone laden with resentment. Got mad for a little scolding, saying that the manager ignored my words, acting as if she sought comfort from the president. My daughter was treated like that. None of that is true. So you're saying her crying is a lie? The president interjected, disappointment evident in his voice. I'm disappointed, Ben. I didn't think you were that kind of person, he added, his words piercing. Moreover, it's outrageous to get re-employed by a rival company. The manager concluded, her disdain palpable. I truly wanted to continue working in the same field. That's why I made the difficult decision to join this company. That was the truth. Even after joining the planning department I aspired for, I was completely ignored by the manager and never got the chance to prove my capabilities. However, I couldn't bring myself to leave this industry, and my current company welcomed me. You must have sold our company's information to get this job, right? Why else would they hire someone as incompetent as you? The manager accused. I did no such thing. I've maintained confidentiality, and this company never asked me for any information. People can say anything. In fact, our company has. Stop. Don't say another word, the president hastily interrupted, signaling to the manager to halt. Was she about to say something they didn't want me to hear? Such a useless person. This company should fire him. A low-ranked individual only brings shame. If Ben apologizes, I might consider taking him back. I'll even reassign him to the planning department if he wishes. For now. We don't need someone like him. Just bear with it and continue as usual. We'll manage. Then, I want a raise. The two of them continued discussing without any regard for my opinion. Despite my repeated expressions of unwillingness to return, I was being told to apologize and be forgiven. The frustration of being treated like a fool left me trembling. The manager noticed and sneered. Are you crying with joy? It figures. Low-ranked individuals really can't help themselves. You really are a kind soul, aren't you? She mocked. Sure, I am. Taking someone like him back is nothing short of generous. Just make sure you don't irritate me too much. Make sure you listen to your boss, okay? I have no intention of leaving this company, I asserted. You still don't get it. I'm offering to take care of you before you get fired for incompetence. You really are clueless. That's the way it is. But don't quit over a little scolding this time, the president added dismissively. The mocking continued. Saying that, the president and the manager mocked me. Mr. President, if I may be so bold, the manager is lying. I spoke up, desperate. After all we've been saying, you're taking this attitude. I'm not lying. That's quite the accusation. Do you have any evidence to back that up? Yes, I prepared this just in case, I said and took a voice recorder out of my bag. I had recorded not only the day the manager told me to leave, but also any other occasions when she had said something unreasonable. You've been recording me? Unbelievable. At the sight of the voice recorder, the manager visibly panicked. Dad, we don't need to listen to this. Let's just go. Then I'll play it. I played the recording, making sure the manager, who was attempting to leave, could hear it. The recording unmistakably captured the manager's voice instructing me not to come to the company. What's the meaning of this? My daughter was lying. It's a lie, the president explained. Undeterred, I went on to reveal all the unfair treatment I had endured from the manager. The recording included the sound of my proposal being torn up, the manager and her aunt bad-mouthing me during work hours, and the crucial exchange where I asked why my proposals were never reviewed. Her reply stung. They're from a low-ranked individual like you. Your ideas are as expected. It was undeniable proof that the manager had been lying. By the way, this is the proposal that the manager tore up, I said, handing a freshly printed proposal to the president. He took it, visibly shaken, and started reading. No way. It's the plan for the hit product this company is currently selling, he explained. This project was one I had poured my heart and soul into, hoping for the manager's approval, but all my efforts had been in vain. The proposal was torn up without even being read. Why did you reject this proposal? You didn't even look at it, I demanded. The manager shrugged it off. Well, his proposals were always so pathetic. I thought there was no need to read them. It's his fault for always behaving badly. I wasn't satisfied and handed another set of documents to the president. Most of them were products developed since I moved to my current company, so it's all true, I explained. These were Ben's plans, the president confirmed. Yes, I worked hard, hoping to be recognized by the manager, but not once did she look at my proposals. I questioned the manager's actions, bewildered by the disregard for my efforts. I'm not the one at fault here, the manager retorted. The president, regaining his composure, addressed the potential copyright violation. Wait, these plans were all developed by this company, right? That's a violation of copyright law. What are you going to do about that? Indeed, if we sue, we'll win, right? He challenged. The president, who had been flustered until then, suddenly seemed to regain his composure and retorted. The manager looked at me as if to say she'd gotten the upper hand. Manager, don't you remember? When I left, you promised to transfer all the copyrights of my projects to me, didn't you? I confronted her. I never said that. I don't remember, she denied. Unfazed, I presented evidence. You're probably going to say you recorded it, right? What's the point of such verbal agreement? No, it's not just that. I got it in writing with your signature. I said that. I began, presenting a piece of paper to the manager. It clearly stated that the copyrights belonged to me, acknowledged and signed by her. What? I don't remember signing this. The manager seemed flustered upon seeing the document. When I submitted my resignation paperwork, I included this document and got your signature on all the papers. That's sneaky. Making me sign something hidden, I accused. If it wasn't hidden, didn't you even read the documents you were signing? I pressed. The manager's face turned pale. Oh no, this document states I hold all the copyrights. I see, I understand. It seems my daughter was really in the wrong, the president interjected, casting a disapproving glance at the manager. Dad, don't say such terrible things. Shut up. Do you have any idea how much profit you've cost us? The manager retorted. Ignoring her outburst, the president turned to me. Ben, won't you please consider coming back to our company? I promise to offer you a higher position than before, one better than your current company can provide. What about me then? You were not ready for the manager position. Start from the beginning again. The president's words made the manager crumble. But such things no longer mattered to me. The president was desperately trying to win me over. So, what do you say? Have you changed your mind about returning? There's no one left to give you a hard time anymore, you know, the president urged, his eyes gleaming. Wanting to leave the situation, I asked him a question. There's something I want to ask. Sure, ask me anything, the president replied eagerly. It hasn't been long since I left your company, so why are you so desperate to bring me back now? I questioned. The president's voice suddenly faded, and he began to make excuses. We've been very busy recently. I thought about addressing it sooner, but I couldn't find the time. Sorry, he stumbled over his words. I didn't miss the president's eyes darting around as he made excuses. Is that so? Because it seemed like you were mostly playing golf when I was working there, I remarked pointedly. That was necessary for business networking. If you want, I can take you with me from now on, the president offered. No, that's all right. Feel free to reach out anytime, I declined. You're going to be our star player from now on, the president continued, talking as if my return to the company was a foregone conclusion, though he was making concessions. The pressure of not going against the president weighed heavily on me. There must be a reason you want me back in the company so badly. Reason. It's nothing grand. I just want to make things right for you, especially since my daughter caused you trouble. The president smoothly dodged the issue. but I could see through his facade. The president's real motive was clear, rendering this all a futile effort. Our company's performance had been growing, while his company had started to stagnate right after I joined. The products I planned hit the market successfully, skyrocketing sales and rapidly increasing the company's reputation. I even got interviewed on TV as the planner. Compared to this thriving company, the president's company's performance had been lackluster. Being a traditional company, it failed to incorporate anything new and lacked buzz. Once seen as rivals, the difference between the two companies was now like night and day. "Did you see me on TV? Is that why you hastily contacted me?" "Well, what was it again? Didn't you realize I had left or that your company's performance wasn't growing until you saw me on TV?" I had a lot I wanted to say. Why did he ignore the harassment I was receiving? Why didn't he inquire when I had to leave abruptly for an unreasonable reason? But conveying that to the president now meant nothing. "There's no need for me to be involved anymore," I stated firmly. "Did you think I was unaware of everything? You're a spiteful person. Yes, our company is in a pinch. If you know that, come back quickly." The president's tone turned accusatory. "I have no intention of leaving this company," I affirmed. "Are you defying me? I was the one who transferred you, a low-ranked college graduate, to the planning department. Are you repaying my kindness with betrayal?" The president's words stung, but I remained resolute. I am grateful for being placed in the planning department and offered many ideas and response. However, it was the president's kin who refused to accept them. "How dare you speak to me like that?" As the president raised his voice, the door to the reception room swung open. Ben has been of great service to us, boss. We're in the middle of something. I can't have you entering unannounced. With all due respect, it's also a nuance for our company when you come without an appointment. Occupy the reception room and tie up our valuable employee. A person of your level shouldn't be so arrogant. Who do you think I am? I spoke firmly to the newcomer. My apologies. May I offer you my business card? My boss presented a business card to the president. The president snatched it, and his face turned pale as he read it. My father is busy, so I came in his stead. I will be serving as the CEO from next year. My boss, like the manager, was the son of the company's president and an extremely capable person set to become the new president next year. I had no idea. No problem. We're grateful for the talented individual you've provided us. The president bowed, and I felt a sense of puzzlement as to why he seemed so anxious. However, we will have to decline the collaboration project you proposed recently, my boss announced. What? You said you considered it to help our company, the president exclaimed. I did consider it. Even though it's a rival company, seeing a traditional manufacturer falter doesn't feel right. Then why? The president questioned, only to be interrupted. Seeing the character of you and your daughter, I couldn't bring myself to support you. Please reconsider, my boss explained. The president desperately apologized, and the manager seemed to finally realize the gravity of the situation. Please help me out here. I'm sorry, the manager pleaded. It's my boss's decision. There's nothing I can do, my boss replied firmly. After that, the president and the manager were escorted out by security guards. Ben, I believe in you. I'll be waiting, the president shouted as he left. I just watched him go. Later, I heard that the manager's company's performance continued to plummet, making management difficult. The calls kept coming after that day, so I changed my phone number. Meanwhile, the company I work for continues to grow rapidly. I want to keep working here for the foreseeable future. Unlock this door. Have you lost your mind? They're probably saying that on the other side of this thick door, but I can't hear them, and frankly, I don't need their forgiveness. Facing the three flustered fools on the other side, I waved with a smile and said, "Let's go. Wonder if you can make it back safely. Good luck." My name is Leah, a 30-year-old officer worker. I'm a newlywed, married for just a year with no kids yet. Back when I was single, My hobby was taking day trips using the train on my days off. Friends would ask, "Don't you get lonely traveling alone?" But I found it surprisingly pleasant to move at my own pace without a fixed schedule. There's a bit of loneliness, but the fun outweighs it. I have a favorite travel magazine, and sometimes I plan trips based on it. As I went about my days, I noticed something. Hug, isn't that the same guy I saw last week? It seemed coincidental, but after the third time, I might have thought it was fate if I were romantic. Instead, I just felt a bit scared, but it turned out he felt the same. Sorry if I'm mistaken, but didn't we meet last week and the week before at completely different places? He approached me with a slightly scared look. Wait, do you think I'm following you? To clear up the misunderstanding, I opened my travel magazine and confidently said, "I'm just traveling based on this magazine." Surprised, he responded, "Me too," and opened the same magazine, smiling happily. That's how I met my husband, Henry. He turned out to be a really interesting guy. Being cautious by nature, I always end up carrying a lot of stuff, but he said, "I always travel light so I can move easily. Nowadays, with cashless payments, you hardly need cash. A mobile phone is enough." He laughed joyfully. Talking with someone with such different values was very stimulating. We hit it off, discussing our favorite travel destinations and exchanged contacts. Though we both liked solo trips, we started going out together more often. Surprisingly, I enjoyed sharing memories with someone else, and I found that local food tastes even better when shared. One day, after about 6 months, Henry asked me to go out. I didn't feel bad at all. In fact, I felt the same way and remember being very happy. We decided to get married 6 months into our relationship. I thought our happy newlywed life was just beginning, but my expectations quickly shattered due to Henry's parents, Jack and Aaliyah. Their house is about a 30-minute drive from ours. They are still in their 50s, with Aaliyah working part-time, and both of them are employed. Initially, they used to visit our house, but lately, we've managed to maintain a reasonable distance. However, an incident occurred that disrupted this balance. "Hey, Henry, let's go here on our next day off." I agree, sounds good. Our post-marriage tradition of many trips to tourist spots continued as usual. Minimalist Henry recently reduced his belongings to just a mobile phone, even entrusting his wallet to me. It feels so light. I don't look like someone who's about to go out at all, do I? He said with a contented smile. I thought to myself, at least carry your own wallet. But it wasn't really a bother. It was an ordinary conversation, but that day was different. Oh, by the way, Dad and Mom's wedding anniversary is coming up soon. How about we invite my parents on our next trip? Henry's sudden suggestion made me tense up. Of course, there was a reason for that, but I couldn't just say no. So I responded, yeah, that sounds good. We haven't seen Aaliyah and Jack recently anyway. Unaware of my slightly strained face, Henry didn't notice a thing. The next day, they were really looking forward to it. When I called, he told me, I guess I have to give it my best shot. So I steeled myself. Honestly, I'm not comfortable around my parents-in-law. They're not bad people, we're just not a good fit. I'm more on the reserved side, not fond of noisy places, and this applies to people too. Talking to high-energy people can be mentally exhausting for me. Speaking of my parents-in-law, they are incredibly cheerful. When I first met them, their exuberance overwhelmed me. Nice to meet you. I'm Henry's mom, and I'm the dad. They announced loudly, like comedians, making me stiffen up involuntarily. That time, the four of us, including Henry and his parents, went out to eat, and they chose the restaurant. I wondered if it's their favorite place, but when we got there, it was an all-you-can-eat buffet. Meeting their son's girlfriend for the first time at such a casual place made me laugh. We're so nervous today. We haven't eaten anything since morning, Aaliyah, who didn't seem nervous at all, said cheerfully to me. That's right, that's right. Plus, we have to get our money's worth. The true reason for skipping breakfast was quickly revealed by Jack. Their loud voices attracted quiet laughter from nearby tables. Embarrassed by then and wanting to go home, Looking sideways, thinking Henry must feel the same, I was surprised to find he wasn't there. He had gone to get food. Not to be outdone, the parents-in-law also got up, piling their plates with food. Are they planning to hibernate after eating so much? Can I really become part of this family? I managed only a forced smile at their overwhelming presence. I barely ate that day, nervous as I was, feeling uncertain about the future with Henry. I was touched when they said at parting, "What a wonderful girlfriend Henry has. He may be awkward, but please take care of Henry from now on, Leah." I was simply happy to hear that. I loved him too, and I thought the parents-in-law weren't bad at heart. So, when he proposed a few months later, I faced no hesitation, but it turns out I'm not adept at judging people. At our wedding, the bridegroom's parents, my parents-in-law, completely disregarded the ceremony and focused solely on eating, leaving my own parents utterly disillusioned. Henry has a brother, Jonathan, who seemed to be the only sensible one. I'm sorry my parents showed such an embarrassing side. It's really shameful. Jonathan came to greet us politely. As I heard from my parents, Jonathan, who lives alone, seems to have a strained relationship with his parents. It appears the feeling is mutual, as they once complained. That boy is always so noisy with his complaints. Just the other day, he bragged about buying several eggs when it was limited to one per person, and I scolded him for it. Seemingly annoyed, he replied, "Don't you feel guilty about benefiting yourself at the expense of others?" Hearing this story, I thought to myself, isn't that a fair point? What's wrong with that, Aliyah? I honestly felt that way when the parents-in-law came to visit our new home. They arrived empty-handed, which wasn't a problem. But then they started rummaging through our shelves, exclaiming, "Isn't this the snack they're advertising on TV? I've been wanting to try it. Oh, and this one too." They foraged through my hidden snacks like they were on a treasure hunt. Even though I bought those snacks, Henry, without any malice, said, "If you want them, take them home. That's fine, right, Leah?" I wanted to smack him right then and there. All I could do was respond with a forced smile. I had a suspicion, but it was clear now. The parents-in-law were moochers. "I want this. I want that. Give me, give me." In the early days of our marriage, they came over every week, sensing an opportunity, and I was almost driven to neurosis. Hey, don't you think there's something off about Aliyah and Jack? They're kind of annoying. My anger exploded, and I ended up fighting with Henry. Despite how angry I was, Henry looked puzzled and said, "No, not really. Is it that strange? They've been like that since I was a kid. Don't worry about it," he said, patting my shoulder lightly, which made me furious. "Are you kidding me? If this keeps up, I'll divorce you. Just do whatever you want." My raised voice seemed to alarm Henry, and he quickly put an end to the parents-in-law's invasions. I don't know what Henry said to them, but since then, we've been living peacefully. However, the thought of traveling with the parents-in-law naturally made me anxious on the day of the trip. I was taken aback to see them waiting. "It's been a while, Lee. I heard you've been busy with work. Must be tough." Aliyah spoke to me, but I was far from calm. The reason lay in the appearance of the parents-in-law. Aliyah and Jack, where's your luggage?" Looking closely, Aliyah and Jack had brought nothing with them, even for a day trip. Isn't it normal to bring at least a bag? We wanted to be ready to move quickly, and I have a sore shoulder. Their response echoed something I'd heard before, and it was baffling. The rest of the trip went as badly as I feared. It was soon revealed that the parents-in-law had forgotten their wallets. Feigning ignorance, they said, "That's strange, isn't it?" Watching them play dumb, I thought, maybe it's better to just call off this trip or even cancel it. "Yeah, unfortunately, my feelings weren't understood," Henry, looking exasperated, said again. "My folks have always been like this. I'll cover for them, but make sure they pay me back." It seemed the trip would continue as the parents-in-law laughed and apologized. All I felt was disgust. Even after we arrived at our destination, the parents-in-law's rudeness didn't stop. They complained to the store staff. "Isn't there any free tasting? Wow, stingy, huh?" When I, feeling thirsty, bought a drink, and hadn't even taken a sip yet. Alia said, "Can I have a sip of that? I'm thirsty too. I can't believe I forgot my wallet, pa." While I forced a smile, an exasperated Henry intervened. "Stop it. It's embarrassing. Look, I'll buy you one." Overhearing this, Jack muttered under his breath, referring to me. What a stingy woman, lacking compassion. I didn't miss his comment. I could say the same to you. I should have left at that point, but I was a bit stubborn. A similar incident happened twice more afterward. Apparently, the first trip was so enjoyable that Alia contacted Henry for another. When I saw them on the station platform, I couldn't help but feel chills. The second time they brought their wallets, but when the moment came, oh no, this is the wallet I used before. I rushed out in such a hurry. Their obvious lie was something only Henry would believe. And on the third trip, they forgot their wallets again. By then, it was clear it was a deliberate act. Alia, excuse me, but did you deliberately forget your wallet? You never intended to pay, did you? I hit the nail on the head, and her face turned red. Hey, what a rude woman you are. Apologize to Alia. Jack glared at me, demanding an apology. No way. I've thought this for a long time. Both of you are just too greedy. Caught in the argument with the parents-in-law, Henry seemed at a loss. Tourists around us watched curiously, noticing their gaze. Henry seemed to feel ashamed and finally said, "Stop it, please," breaking down crying. I felt truly disillusioned, but the parents-in-law reacted differently. Rushing to a crying Henry, Alia said, "I'm sorry, Henry. It was my fault." "You're so kind to cry for me," with Jack quietly standing beside her. I didn't know how to react to this farce. Only one thought came to mind. Yeah, this is impossible. Let's get a divorce. That was all I could think, seeing Henry's tears. The parents-in-law seemed to lose their fighting spirit. "Leah, we know we're often in the wrong. It's Henry's money. But still, we've taken advantage of him. It's Henry's money after all." I don't know why they said it twice, but their words, dripping with sarcasm, showed no real remorse. And so, it was confirmed that they had deliberately forgotten their wallets. Alia referred to it as Henry's money, but we both work, and his salary is only slightly higher than mine. Our actual incomes are not much different. Recently, every trip with the parents-in-law ended with, "I want to buy this too. Maybe some gifts for the neighbors as well. What's that? Looks tasty. Hey, Henry, buy that for me." Because of their endless demands, Henry's credit card bills were shockingly high. We've been living mostly on my salary for the past few months. At the time of marriage, I considered it family money and believed in spending within the limits of our allowance for personal desires. Don't be a burden to your partner. The thing that infuriated me the most was when cashless reliant Henry exclaimed at our travel destination, "What, only cash here?" He called me over, pulled his wallet out of my bag. It only had a few dollars in coins. "No, I messed up. You know I don't carry cash, right?" he said without malice. It still makes me furious thinking about it. For the record, I'd always paid for my own things, yet the parents-in-law probably thought I was living off Henry's money and just complaining. We split living expenses, so such accusations were nothing but unpleasant. Thinking all this, I coldly watched Henry crying and Jack consoling him. After a moment of thought, I said, "I was wrong too. Sorry for being presumptuous. You guys go ahead on the train. I'll buy some drinks and follow." I smiled calmly, and Henry and the parents-in-law happily boarded the train. Their smiles turned to panic a few minutes later when I didn't return. Henry must have felt something was off as he messaged me, "Leah, are you coming? The train is about to leave." Right then, the heavy doors slowly closed from the platform. I had a clear view of Henry's panicked face. It seemed he noticed me and was shouting something. I was replying to his earlier message. "I'm divorcing you. If your parents are so important, live happily with them. Goodbye." I ignored his calls, thinking, doesn't he care about being a nuisance on the train? Tease. He sent several messages afterward, but I ignored them all. Henry's face through the door slowly turned to anger. "Hey, open this door. Are you crazy?" I won't forgive you, he said, as if I needed his permission. The parents-in-law seemed to be yelling too, but of course, I couldn't hear them. Smiling at the three fools, I said, "Let's go, wonder if you'll make it back safely. Good luck." The train quietly departed, quickly disappearing from sight. That train won't stop for a while. Walking back would be quite a challenge. After watching the train leave, I hurried home to pack my bags and left. I stayed with a friend I'd been discussing divorce with. Henry's barrage of messages continued until they suddenly stopped. His phone must have died. He often forgot to charge it before bed, and it was only at 20% this morning. Portable battery chargers are essential. That was Henry's mantra. But his crucial portable battery charger was in my bag, along with his wallet. I left all the belongings he entrusted to me at home. He must be panicking by now, but that's not my concern. While planning my next steps with my friend, my mobile phone rang. The caller was unexpected. Jonathan, Henry's brother. "Leah, I'm sorry. Did something happen?" According to Jonathan, Henry's phone had run out of battery, and in his panic, he dropped it, shattering the screen. Unable to reach me, the desperate parents-in-law could only think of one person to call. So I got contacted, but all I got was, "Ask Leah for the reason." He seemed unwilling to say more. I told Jonathan everything about Henry and the parents-in-law without holding back. As I spoke, I could hear Jonathan's voice getting sharper over the phone from the other end. "Leah's making a fool of us. Tell her off, Jonathan." The in-laws were loudly insisting that Jonathan, with his way with words, would outtalk me. After I finished explaining, Jonathan snapped, "Hey, you scoundrel. Are you stupid? What, you scoundrel?" I had heard from Aliyah that when Jonathan gets really angry, he becomes intimidating with a high-handed tone. And since Jonathan only speaks sense, Henry and the parents-in-law can't retort when he gets like that. I could hear the in-laws arguing in the background, but I quietly hung up the phone. Henry was not content with the divorce. But after I conveyed through a lawyer that I wanted to divorce without any further contact, he reluctantly agreed, accompanied by Jonathan. Later, Jonathan told me that the parents-in-law had always been terrible moochers, disliked by neighbors and even school associates. When Henry returned to the ex-in-law's house, he quickly became the talk of the neighborhood, and now all three hardly ever go out. Henry's colleagues, not knowing what to say about the quick divorce, were treating him like a delicate subject. "I'm glad to cut ties with them after this incident," Jonathan told me with a laugh. The parents-in-law were known at the local supermarket for their outrageous behavior. "This is expiring soon, so give me a discount. It's a little damaged, so I'll take it for free." Jonathan expressed his long-standing embarrassment and disdain for his parents' behavior. Recently, Henry has been seen joining them, reflecting their blood connection. It turned out the parents-in-law were both gambling addicts, often skimping on food expenses, which explained their constant hunger and lack of money. When asked about the reason for my divorce, I can only say it was a difference in values. If anyone can tolerate such behavior, they must be incredibly broad-minded. It was just too much for me. I've continued working and even started a side job as a web writer after my travel blog caught a publisher's attention. I still travel, combining it with writing assignments. Solo travel seems to suit me best. Last month, I earned a decent income from writing, so I'm planning to take a vacation to a resort somewhere far for relaxation. I'm still only 30 years old. Life is just beginning. I apologize for any inconvenience, but I'm not feeling well today. Could I possibly take a short rest? It's quite unfortunate that I'm under the weather, especially since I am working remotely and have a virtual meeting scheduled. Despite having to make such a request, which feels a bit embarrassing, I appreciate your understanding, considering my pregnancy. It's kind of you to offer a break. Let's pause for 45 minutes and reconvene afterward. I'm genuinely thankful for your empathy and flexibility. Normally, such a break might not be allowed, but given the circumstances, I've decided to accept your kind offer and rest. Laying down for a bit should help me recover and return to work feeling refreshed. I've set my alarm for a half-hour nap, hoping it will do the trick. However, just as I was about to drift off, my mother-in-law unexpectedly entered my room, visibly upset. She accused me of neglecting my duties around the house in favor of spending time on my computer. Despite my attempts to explain that I was actually working and merely taking a necessary break due to my severe morning sickness, she didn't seem to believe me. Her reaction was harsh, criticizing me for what she perceived as laziness. In her anger, she misunderstood my situation entirely, even resorting to physical aggression, which was both shocking and dangerous, especially considering my pregnancy. Despite my pleas, she continued misunderstanding my attempts to explain as backtalk. This confrontation escalated to a point where I felt my safety and that of my unborn child was at risk. Regrettably, I had to cancel the meeting abruptly to address this urgent situation. Just then, a concerned voice from my computer inquired about the commotion, which momentarily caught my mother-in-law off guard. Her anger shifted to surprise. To give a bit of background about myself, my name is Sophia, and I'm 30 years old. After completing my education in a vocational school, I embarked on a career in it. Despite my qualifications, I found the job challenging and often doubted my abilities, feeling overwhelmed and considering leaving my position. However, around 4 years into my role, just as I was about to discuss my resignation due to the toll it was taking on me both physically and mentally, my boss proposed a different path. He recognized my contributions and offered me the opportunity to lead a new project, acknowledging my hard work and potential. This was a pivotal moment in my career. Feeling uncertain, I shared my doubts with my boss, confessing that taking on a new project seemed daunting, especially since I was on the verge of resigning. I couldn't imagine anyone entrusting me with such a significant responsibility given my hesitations. To my surprise, my boss reassured me, stating that it's natural not to be able to tackle everything solo and that teamwork was the key to success. He mentioned he had already found a collaborator for me and excused himself to fetch my new partner. The wait filled me with curiosity and a bit of anxiety about who my boss would bring. About 22 minutes later, he returned, introducing me to Jerry, my project partner. Jerry greeted me with a friendly smile, and I was immediately struck by his warm presence and good looks. As we got acquainted, I learned that Jerry, despite being from a different department, had an excellent reputation and was well regarded by both his peers and juniors. Our boss tasked us with making the project a success and left us to decide our approach. Alone with Jerry, I felt a mix of excitement and nerves, expressing my hope that I wouldn't hinder our progress. Jerry, ever the optimist, assured me we'd support each other and succeed together. Working with Jerry was a breath of fresh air. He excelled in interactions with clients, handling sales and presentations, while I focused on the technical aspects, developing systems as needed. Our collaboration not only pushed the project forward, but also brought us closer personally. We began spending time together outside of work, enjoying each other's company in a more relaxed setting, which naturally evolved into a romantic relationship 2 months later. We successfully completed the project, earning acclaim within the company, which reinforced my belief in my professional abilities and the value of perseverance. 2 years into our relationship, Jerry proposed, expressing his desire for my support in all aspects of life. Despite my limited experience in relationships, I was touched by his commitment, and feeling more content than ever, I happily accepted his proposal. Eager to share our happiness, we visited Jerry's family home to introduce ourselves. Upon arrival, Jerry's father welcomed us warmly, complimenting my appearance and inviting us in with open arms. His kindness made me optimistic about meeting my mother-in-law, hoping she would be just as welcoming. As we made our way to the living room, I couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and nerves about the new chapter in my life. Upon meeting my mother-in-law for the first time, I introduced myself with enthusiasm and respect, hoping for a warm reception. However, she seemed to dismiss my presence, focusing on the television instead of acknowledging me. It was Jerry who pointed out my attempt to greet her, prompting her to finally acknowledge us, albeit with a clear preference for her son over me. Jerry suggested overlooking his mother's cold reception and invited me to join them on the sofa, aiming to ease into a more formal introduction and discussion about our relationship. When the topic of our marriage came to light, his mother's reaction was far from supportive. She openly expressed her disapproval of me as Jerry's partner, attributing her stance to our differing backgrounds and implying that our values would be incompatible due to our disparate financial upbringings. Her words were a blunt dismissal of the possibility of our union, suggesting that my humble beginnings and Jerry's affluent lifestyle would prevent me from fitting into their family. Despite the shock and hurt her judgment caused, I struggled to formulate a response, feeling overwhelmed by the situation. Jerry and his father immediately came to my defense, challenging the notion that our differing backgrounds could dictate the success of our relationship. Jerry's objection to his mother's harsh words showed his commitment to us, and his father attempted to mediate the tension. Yet, my mother-in-law remained unconvinced, setting forth a condition that caught us all off guard. She demanded that if we were to marry, I must agree to live with them in their family home. This unexpected ultimatum was her way of granting her approval for our marriage, placing me in a difficult position. The thought of not starting our married life independently as I had hoped was disheartening. However, understanding the importance of family and the commitments that come with marriage, I agreed to her terms. I assured her of my readiness to embrace all responsibilities, including caring for her and my father-in-law when needed. My declaration surprised everyone, especially Jerry and his father, who likely did not anticipate my willingness to comply with such a significant request. I made it clear that my commitment to Jerry extended beyond our immediate happiness to include the well-being of his family. With a heavy heart yet determined resolve, I asked for her approval once more, hoping this gesture would bridge the gap between us and allow us to move forward as a family. Agreeing to my mother-in-law's condition, I found myself securing her approval for our marriage. She asked me to look after them, which I promised to do, marking the end of our initial tense introduction. Despite my reservations about living with my in-laws, the presence of Jerry and the support of my father-in-law gave me hope that things might turn out fine. Fast forward 8 months, Jerry and I were married, and I moved into his parents' house as agreed. The first few months passed with little incident. My mother-in-law remained mostly silent, perhaps taking the time to observe my integration into their household. Aware of her watchful eyes, I diligently managed household chores alongside my full-time job, hoping to avoid any cause for complaint. One morning, as I was about to leave for work, my mother-in-law stopped me, indicating she wanted to have a discussion. Anticipating a lengthy conversation, I braced myself for what lay ahead. I promptly informed my boss that I would be late as my mother-in-law chose to discuss my pregnancy, a topic not surprising given Jerry and I had been planning for our family's future. I was prepared for her thoughts, expecting her to suggest I quit my job to focus on the pregnancy and eventual motherhood. Indeed, she voiced exactly that opinion, arguing that I should leave my job immediately. This stance was difficult for me to accept. Before marrying Jerry, quitting might have seemed like a plausible option. However, my work had become a significant part of my identity and happiness. Moreover, with a baby on the way, the financial stability my job provided felt more crucial than ever. Despite my reasoning, my mother-in-law persisted, criticizing my decision to work and even my ability to manage household tasks. Her harsh words began to take a toll on my well-being. The conversation stretched on, and as time ticked away, I realized I was significantly late for work. Feeling cornered, I acknowledged her demand to quit my job, though I had no real intention of doing so. This concession was meant to end the immediate confrontation, but my mother-in-law pushed further, insisting I inform my employer of my resignation that very day. This left me in a difficult position, outwardly agreeing while internally conflicted about my next steps. After arriving at work significantly late, I couldn't shake off the unease clouding my thoughts. Seated at my desk, I found myself voicing my worries under my breath, catching the attention of my boss, who could tell something was amiss. Despite my attempts to dismiss his concerns, he saw through my facade and guided me to a secluded conference room for a private discussion. Reluctantly, I opened up about the dilemma I was facing at home. My mother-in-law had sternly advised me to quit my job due to my pregnancy, insisting that it was for the best. Yet the thought of leaving my job felt wrong to me. I wished to continue working, I told my boss. He listened intently, absorbing the complexity of my situation before falling into a contemplative silence. It wasn't long before a solution sparked in his mind. He proposed the idea of remote work, suggesting that it could be a viable compromise. Working from home would shield me from my mother-in-law's scrutiny and allow me to continue my professional duties without the physical strain of commuting. The idea resonated with me as a potential win-win solution. Acting swiftly, my boss headed straight to the relevant department to get the green light for me to work remotely. From my desk, I watched anxiously for any sign of approval. Soon enough, a positive gesture from my boss confirmed that I would be transitioning to working from home. Grateful for his support, I prepared for this new chapter, hopeful that it would alleviate the tensions at home. I stayed later at the office to organize and hand over necessary documents to my colleagues, announcing that I would be working remotely starting the next day. When I arrived home that evening, I was met with a stern-faced mother-in-law who seemed prepared for a confrontation. She questioned me about quitting my job, to which I explained my new arrangement of working from home. Her response was less intense than I anticipated, allowing me to sigh in relief, albeit temporarily. I was thankful for my employer's flexibility, but little did I know this change would soon introduce a new set of challenges. The very next day, my mother-in-law's attempts to assert her presence in my new work environment began with an early wake-up call that was far from necessary. Her loud demands disrupted my sleep at 6:05 a.m., a stark reminder of the delicate balance I would need to maintain between my work responsibilities and my new living situation. As I tried to ignore her and catch a few more moments of rest, I realized that navigating this new arrangement would require patience and resilience. Despite my best efforts to ignore her persistent calls, my mother-in-law's voice eventually became so loud that it risked waking my husband, wanting to avoid causing him any inconvenience. Reluctantly, I left the warmth of my bed and headed to the living room to address her demands. "What's going on? It's only 6 o'clock in the morning?" I questioned, only to be met with her insistence that it was already time to start the day and prepare breakfast, a task she deemed overdue by her standards. Her logic seemed flawed to me. Breakfast was usually a later morning activity in our household. Yet, according to her, she had been patient with me up until this point, allowing me to sleep because I had to go to work. But now, with me working from home, she expected me to rise early every day for breakfast duties. Despite my internal objections, I found myself in the kitchen, starting the day far earlier than necessary, preparing breakfast under her watchful eye. After announcing that breakfast was ready, my mother-in-law criticized both the timeliness and quality of the meal, particularly targeting the soup for being too salty. Defending my cooking, I tried to explain that I had followed the usual recipe, but her mind seemed made up, using this as a pretext to offer me a lesson in housekeeping, a proposal I accepted with a heavy heart, hoping to keep the peace. Her lessons soon proved to be a series of exhaustive demands that extended well beyond the kitchen. Once my husband and father-in-law departed for work, I had hoped to start my remote work. However, my mother-in-law had other plans, insisting on a thorough completion of household chores before I could even think about sitting down at my computer. Her understanding of work was fundamentally different from mine, equating value only with physical labor and dismissing the legitimacy of remote work as inconsequential. Feeling cornered, I complied with her instructions, putting aside my professional responsibilities to tackle the cleaning and laundry. Despite her continuous dissatisfaction with my efforts, she demanded a level of cleanliness that she herself did not adhere to, critiquing my use of the vacuum and insisting on more traditional methods of cleaning, which consumed even more of my time. After hours of household chores, I finally returned to my desk, eager to catch up on my work. Yet the reprieve was short-lived. My mother-in-law's voice soon echoed once again, summoning me from my work with an urgency that left me wondering what possible task awaited me this time. The cycle of interruptions made it clear that balancing my remote work with her expectations was going to be an ongoing challenge, requiring patience, tact, and perhaps a new strategy. My attempts to balance work with my mother-in-law's demands reached a boiling point when she interrupted me once again, asking for tea while I was deeply engrossed in my work. Frustrated and unable to contain my feelings any longer, I asked if she could possibly make it herself. Given that I was in the middle of something important, this honest expression of my boundaries was met with an exaggeratedly negative response from her, accusing me of being disrespectful and lazy, mistaking my work on the computer for leisure. The situation escalated quickly when, in a burst of anger, she physically grabbed my shirt. Although she didn't go as far as to hit me, the threat of violence hung heavily in the air. I managed to defuse the situation with an apology, but this incident marked a turning point. From then on, my mother-in-law seemed to assert her dominance more aggressively, summoning me for increasingly petty tasks and treating me more like a servant than a family member. Despite pleading with my husband and father-in-law to intervene, their presence did little to curb her behavior, as she cleverly concealed her true nature around them. Months of enduring this treatment left me both physically and emotionally drained. However, a particularly distressing incident occurred on a day when I had diligently completed all my chores early in anticipation of an important online meeting, just as the meeting was about to start. Feeling suddenly unwell, I had to request a short break during the meeting, which was kindly granted by the meeting leader. As I lay down to rest, my room door flew open, and my mother-in-law stormed in, accusing me of shirking my duties under the guise of work. Despite my attempts to explain that I was genuinely unwell and had already completed the household tasks, she launched into a tirade, questioning the legitimacy of my work and accusing me of lying. Her anger escalated to a shocking act of violence as she began to physically assault me, endangering not just my well-being but also that of my unborn child. In a desperate attempt to protect myself and my baby, I had no choice but to cancel the meeting and seek safety. In this moment of crisis, a voice from my computer offered a brief distraction, but it did little to deter my mother-in-law's fury. Her actions, driven by misunderstanding and a refusal to acknowledge the legitimacy of my work and health needs, underscored the severity of the situation, leaving me in a position where I had to reevaluate my living situation and seek a resolution to ensure the safety and well-being of both myself and my child. In a dramatic turn of events, my confrontation with my mother-in-law reached its climax when, after enduring months of mistreatment, an unexpected ally emerged. As I lay on the bed feeling vulnerable and wronged, my plea for help was unexpectedly broadcasted through the open meeting screen, capturing the attention of my father-in-law, who witnessed the entire ordeal. Reacting swiftly to what he had seen, my father-in-law rushed home, determined to put an end to the abuse. The room was charged with tension as he confronted my mother-in-law, demanding an explanation for her actions. His presence was formidable, echoing the authority he wielded in his professional life. Yet it was clear that his outrage stemmed from a place of protective concern for both me and the unborn child. My mother-in-law, caught off guard and unable to justify her behavior, attempted to defend herself. The situation escalated when my father-in-law revealed his direct involvement in the project that had brought me into the meeting, a project that symbolized a collaborative effort between our companies and highlighted the importance of my work. The revelation that my professional contributions were integral to a project of such significance seemed to momentarily shift the power dynamics within the room. Yet, the scene took a concerning turn when, in a moment of misguided retribution, my father-in-law mimicked my mother-in-law's earlier actions against me. Despite his intentions, I couldn't condone the violence and intervened, urging him to stop. grateful for his support, but unwilling to see harm come to anyone else. In the aftermath, I found the courage to address my mother-in-law directly, challenging her dismissive attitude toward my work and asserting my autonomy. I explained the necessity of my job and the steps I had taken to adapt my working conditions, emphasizing that her demands had repercussions beyond our household. My words were an assertion of my independence, that I was neither her servant nor someone to be belittled or controlled. Her response to my defiance was predictable. Yet in that moment, I stood my ground, empowered by the validation of my work and the support of my family. The confrontation served as a pivotal moment, one that redefined the boundaries within our household and marked a new chapter in my journey toward balancing my professional ambitions with my personal life. In a moment of confrontation, I stood my ground against my mother-in-law's attempt to physically intimidate me once more. Instead of succumbing to fear, I firmly caught her wrist, warning her against underestimating me due to my apparent calm demeanor. My assertion of self-defense seemed to take her by surprise, leading to a moment of realization for her. She looked defeated and agreed to my request to inform the person in charge of the meeting about its cancellation, allowing me some peace to concentrate on my work. Later, as my father-in-law returned to his professional commitments, I noticed a significant shift in my mother-in-law's behavior. She no longer interfered with me. This newfound tranquility allowed me to make remarkable progress in my work undisturbed, a stark contrast to the previous months of constant interruptions. That evening, as I was preparing dinner, my husband and father-in-law arrived home. My husband, having been briefed by his father about the day's events, expressed concern for my well-being. Despite the tension, I reassured him that I was all right. However, he felt the family discussion was necessary and summoned everyone to the living room. As we gathered, the atmosphere was tense, especially around my mother-in-law, who seemed anxious about the impending conversation. My husband directly addressed the day's events, prompting my mother-in-law to admit her actions. This confession seemed to weigh heavily on him, marking a moment of realization about the extent of her behavior towards me. The silence was then broken by my father-in-law's declaration of his intention to divorce, acknowledging his part in allowing the situation to escalate to this point. The announcement shocked everyone, especially my mother-in-law, who pleaded for reconsideration. However, my father-in-law stood firm in his decision. The following days saw the agreement of the divorce being put into action, with plans to remove my mother-in-law from the home. As she prepared to leave, burdened with her belongings, she sought closure, thanking me for the time spent together. At this moment, I felt compelled to address her one last time, not out of forgiveness, but perhaps to offer a final piece of advice or closure. Her expression shifted as she turned back at my call, possibly hoping for a last-minute reprieve or reconciliation. However, my words for her were not of forgiveness, but a reminder of the consequences of her actions, emphasizing the importance of respect and understanding within a family. This encounter, though brief, was a poignant reminder of the complex dynamics that had unfolded and the transformative journey we had all embarked on as a result of these tumultuous events. After my mother-in-law left the house, carrying the weight of her actions and the consequences they brought, I couldn't help but feel a mix of relief and contemplation. The idea of seeking legal action against her crossed my mind, especially after her reckless behavior, but I chose a path of restraint. Instead, I sought reassurance from my father-in-law, wondering if the decision for him to divorce her was truly what he wanted. His response, filled with regret for not recognizing her true nature sooner, affirmed the necessity of the separation. In the weeks that followed, the absence of my mother-in-law brought newfound peace to the household. My work flourished without interruption, and the project initiated by my father-in-law's company progressed smoothly. While curiosity about my mother-in-law's current situation lingered, it was a distant concern compared to the tranquility and focus I now enjoyed. The question of her well-being finally found its moment over dinner one evening when my husband inquired about her. My father-in-law, with a hint of concern and curiosity in his voice, shared that he had visited her. The description of her living conditions, marked by disarray and convenience store meals, painted a stark contrast to the life she once led. Her current employment at a supermarket, supplemented by a pension, suggested a significant adjustment from her previous lifestyle. This revelation brought mixed emotions. While there was a part of me that felt vindicated, another part couldn't help but reflect on the drastic changes she had undergone. The knowledge that she was struggling did not bring joy, but a complex sense of closure. The focus now shifted to the future, particularly to the arrival of our daughter. The commitment to providing a nurturing, positive environment for her became my primary focus, ensuring she would grow up in a household defined by love, respect, and stability, far removed from the turmoil of the past. As I anticipated the birth of our daughter, the resolve to shield her from negative influences strengthened. The experience with my mother-in-law served as a poignant reminder of the values and environment I wished to cultivate for our growing family. With this vision in mind, I looked forward to welcoming our new addition with optimism and open arms.